Let's do this. Get it on. Hello. Surprise, surprise. Doing it live. It's a Friday night. They have a whole bunch of other. Let's see. Speakeasy is. I think he's starting Verbal Combat now. Let's see who's on. Crucible. Ooh, Dave's on. Animated Effigy. I-Fi's in the audience. He'll probably hop up later. So there's that going on. Oh, that's really all I see. That and the Crucible Fresh and Fit. So hopefully I'm third on everybody's list and y'all can hang out here tonight. Hey, Daniel Barry. Happy Friday to you too. That's why I did this. This is my new Friday night since 2020. It's my new every night. During COVID, when we locked down, this is all I did. I didn't even have a time. I had no sense of time. I just knew that I woke up and got on Zoom, got on the internet, and talked to people and did things, and time passed, and my body slept at different points, and it woke up and it got back on Zoom, and I had I had to make a full calendar of, I had like 3, 4, 5, 6 meetings a day, different groups and Zooms and this and that, and I loved it. I felt more busy than I've ever felt in real life, and I got more done, and I was more productive because I could find the people that would halfway listen to me and take me somewhat seriously enough to collaborate. So it is possible to you just have to find the right people. So if you feel like too weird or misfitty or swimming uphill, and in some cultures it is harder than others, that can be hacked. There's ways around that, and you can make your own path. I mean, there's a way through. Sometimes you just have to get creative. Oh, why am I selling my soul? We watched a movie today called Late Night with the Devil, and it was I knew someone was going to ask that. It is not much at all. In fact, it's not much more than people are already doing. It's about this 70s late night talk show, and kind of all the antics that go on there, and it involves deviltry and magic and occult and stuff like that. And it kind of got me, like, my takeaway from the movie is, okay, I'm a Satanist. I need to start thinking creatively. There's got to be some rituals I could be doing to help this stream. And I need to find a demon I can make a pact with or sell. If I need to see how much soul I have left, but sell some soul to, and get this stream going. So that's where the sell the soul is. I'm willing to do my what I'm willing to do for this stream has gotten kind of jump started by this movie and kicked up a few levels. And it was about how to get ratings for this talk show and the movie. So they came up with some really extreme ways to get some ratings. And I'm like, we could do that. We could definitely do that. And another thought I had was, this is a movie and it's scripted and has writers or whatever. If we took the same plot elements and tried to implement them on the stream, I think we would have a better result than the writers came up with in this movie, just organically, spontaneously, with the people we have on here. So it's like I could take plot elements and do some of them on the stream, and I think get an even better result than the movie got advertised. I did think about I put in a few groups. I'm in some Facebook groups, although I'm not really active, but I did post it in a few groups. So who knows how many we got from there. But I also suggested maybe if other people are just the groups you're active participants in, because the idea is that if it's a group you're into, it's probably going to be cool people similar to yourself. And so and not just post a link, but if it comes up in a discussion or a comment or if it just happens to come up and you can work it into a group, but like maybe getting it out in a few groups, if each person put it in one or two groups, and I've been putting it in some of my groups, and I put it on Twitter every day too, and Discord, and Discord's another good place. So if you're in Discords, Facebook groups, Reddits, I don't know what all is out there. That maybe that would be a way, because really we're only looking to bring in like a few people at a time. I don't want a flood of growth, but we've been idling for a while, and it feels like really it's watching the movie that inspired me. Otherwise, this wouldn't even be a topic. Oh, hang on, my friend. My Twitter friend said he's gonna hop on one night. He's Orthodox, to talk about Satanism and how it could be analogous to seeking Christ, which is a point I've made several times, over and over. That I could easily use Christ, or someone could easily swap out Christ for Satan or any other deity or archetype, depending on their needs. Satan's just the one that works for me. But the seeking, I think, is very similar in each person. All right. So yeah, that's what the stream's about. So the bidding, like make an offer. We've tried chesties, we've tried flat out shirts off, more or less. We did the dancing. Flo tried to pimp us a few times. This is your this and Easy. Yeah, I like Easy. It's a different crowd. It seems younger and more like boy girl type oriented, but I like Easy too. He was one of the first streamers that I kind of got into, that I'm like, oh, if I can do that kind of stuff, that he makes it look like anybody can do it. Validation, fame, or money. Like it if you see, that puts me in such a double bind. No, we're trying to at least get monetized, which is I think 500. So we're like a couple of hundred away, so that we can start doing super chats and memberships and stuff like that. Because if we can get even a small budget going, we have ideas on how to expand the channel. And a 24-hour stream is one of the things we're looking at. So it'd be stuff like that to start, upgrade equipment, that kind of stuff. Because the stream is part of a larger community building project. And so the idea is to start getting some kind of income pumping into that, so we can get like a community economy going and start funding projects. So validation, no, I don't get my validation externally. And if I do, I have a very select team of people that I built up trust over the years that I get it from. Mostly I've always kind of got it from myself, even though as a kid though. So validation's not really a big thing. Fame, if you mean notoriety, maybe. I don't know. I'm not really seeking that. I'm autistic, so I don't even know that fame would mean anything, or that I even notice it. And like I said, the money. I would like to do this full time. I love doing this. It puts me in my zone, and when I'm in my zone, I know I'm in like at my creative max, where I'm going to be the most effective. And so, I want to find a way to do this full time. So I'm not looking to for like Scrooge McDuck levels of wealth. I'm just looking to like find a way to do this for a living and keep it going and cover the bills and stuff. So community projects, like Chris has a few projects he has ideas for, both in person and virtual. The ultimate vision, like if we just, in our fantasy world, if we didn't have any constraints or limitations, it would be a hybrid community that we would grow virtually. And then when there's enough people in any one location, they could start like a local chat. Like we have several people in the Texas area that could perhaps get together and start building in-person community. And then so we'd have a way for people to kind of participate where they are and have a like touch the grass community in addition to this. or it would be at whatever level people want to participate. If they just wanted to do virtual, that's fine. But if they wanted some kind of offline extension of that, we would eventually be able to provide that too. And like I have the idea, because during COVID, I did that 24-hour. We did a 24-hour Zoom for the people that were socially isolated, and it was a team of peers, so like mental health peer support, and people could come in. We had breakout rooms. They could come in and talk to people, or if they were going through something, some like one of the peers could go off in the breakout room with them and talk to them. So we did that during COVID. So I'd like to do some kind of modified version of that, 24 hours, just kind of a community drop-in for the panelverse crowd, or whoever. My goal is to be helpful, so whoever it helps the most. And my target population is neurodivergent men, because that's what I'm best at. So it tends to be a space that's normed around their needs and their style and their norms. There's not a lot out there right now for men's mental health in general, so I try to be part of that, and specifically for when you mix in the autism and ADHD and all the other neurodivergence, it becomes an even more like underserved population. Fame puts a target on my back. Yeah, I'm internet famous, I'm told. Like if you Google my name, I come up a lot. I'm on podcasts and blogs and videos, because during COVID I did a lot of I had a podcast of my own, but I went on a lot of other podcasts to talk about peer support, autism, mental health topics, etc. So I show up a lot on the internet from that. Well, that's what we're trying to do. That's why I'm trying to keep all the drama off lately. It still comes up, but I look at it like a spiral, and I try to keep the conversation flowing upward. Like I try to do things to encourage it to move upward. And then sometimes people come on with the drama and it gets derailed, and it starts to move downward. And I try to turn it back and turn the spiral going upward again. And so I'm getting better and at learning which elements to kind of manage on here to keep it going in the direction I want to go, and not get bogged down in the other direction like it sometimes does with gimmicks and demons. Yeah, you might have a point if I do the ritual stuff, but I got to try something. Plus, it would give me a chance to get better in my own Satanism. I'd finally have a use for it. Like, oh, I have a use of doing a ritual now, or I have a reason to like try to figure out how to summon a demon and make a pact and see if it helps my stream. So, yeah, what Jonathan said, exactly that. Because they have, I don't know if you'll know this, but they have Satan out there. He was on one of the, who was it? It wasn't Flow State. Maybe it was one of the panels I don't watch frequently. I was just flipping through, and they had avatar. It was Satan, and he had the avatar of Satan, and he had an AI voice changer, and he talked like Satan, and he came on, and he was giving his criticism and commentary of the people on the panel. And it was just, I'm like, I want him on my show. I need to get Satan on my show. And it went kind of from how do we maybe summon the real Satan? Or like, why stop at an avatar Satan if you can get the real thing? OTW has played Satan. Maybe it was him then. I loved it. Whoever it was, they get whatever the panelverse version of an Emmy is, I nominate them. So yeah, and it's anyone's welcome to come hang out, by the way. It's an open panel. I just hanging out. I think Chris and them are still watching movies. Something called Monkey Man. I think it's for Frank. I watched the trailer. It's like these, I couldn't really tell what it was, but it looked like maybe gang members or outlaws or crime fighters, and they decide they have to turn into monkeys or look like monkeys for some. So it's kind of like Planet of the Apes. They put on monkey mask or face, and So you naturally would think of Frank. Who you thought he was doing a big thing? You talking about Satan? The Panelverse Satan? Well, he did a big thing for me. He made me excited. Good thing I can separate fantasy from reality, but damn, that it was only fantasy. Satan, OTW. Well, tell him he has a fan. He has an admirer. Horns off to him. To metalhead. Wait, convert Easy? Easy's not already a metalhead? I wouldn't think he would need converting at all. He's more hip hoppy, right? But the two to me are very adjacent culturally. Yeah. I'm not a huge metalhead, but I can definitely talk. I was more like the alternative, like the New York City underground, no wave, and then the late 80s, 90s version of that, Sonic Youth, Swans, and then Pixies, Dinosaur Jr., etc. So it wasn't necessarily metal, but it was made by like suburban intellectual kids. Some of them had college degrees or were college dropouts. Like so much of rock and roll, people don't understand, was started by middle class suburban kids that went to art school. Like this is art. It's not. The Rolling Stones weren't like Southerners in the cotton fields singing about their hard lives in the South. These were middle class British art students that were working in a medium of the American blues, but they were creating modern art with it, and they're so good at it that it seems like rock and roll, but there's an artistry to it all. And I forgot where I was going with the art stuff, but and so to like in my day, like as a suburban kid myself, and the music was being made by the same type of like suburban intellectuals. Some of them were like, there's kind of a trend in rock where it diverts intellectuals they get seduced into rock instead. Like Lou Reed had a literary background, Jim Morrison. Some of the ones I'm talking about in the 80s and 90s were in college for a semester or two and decided they got really disillusioned and disaffected. And I wonder if the wokeness was not some of it, or at least the feminization, and ended up pursuing rock careers instead. That certainly was the case with the Pixies. Dinosaur Jr., I don't think ever went to college, or maybe just a semester. And anyways, so that felt like violence to me, and some of it really is it's the same like violence you go to metal for. It was just in a intellectualized, suburbanized way that spoke more to my demographic or background. And I always associated metal, particularly hair metal of the 80s, which is what I grew up with. Although Van Halen's 1984 album is one of my favorite rock albums, I always associate with trailer park people, because the people that listened to it were the ones it was the white people that lived in trailers, and we were poor, but we didn't live in a trailer. And so status wise, it was just like if when you're poor, slightly lower status is enough for you to feel less poor. And so the hair metal was trailer park, and that was just been like, I wasn't I had a good friend, he lived in a trailer, and he was a hair metal fan. And so I would hear a lot of it through him, but it never really drew me in as a genre. But that feeling, that violence, the ancient Greeks, they say, had a as part of their, because they had this complex religion called musike. It was part music, song, dance, drama. The gods were involved, etc., and the muses. And as part of that, they would have people listen to different music, different styles of music, and the music they responded to would show what god they worshipped or were affiliated with. And I think about all the time, like all the genres of music I was drawn to and what gods those genres represent. And metal, I was drawn to, it's definitely Ares and perhaps Hades with the gothic stuff. But the violence and the energy. It matched my emotions. It matched the psyche of my inner teenage self. And so the same thing that drew people to metal, that like drew the trailer park kids to metal, drew me to this more suburban, like artsy, intellectualized stuff. But it was still that violent energy in the music that drew me to it. And so that I don't even remember how we got started talking about rock and roll, but anyway, that is the rock and roll that I grew up with. That's rock and roll to me. Let's see, he's fake profile. Oh, I know the feeling, Auntie. I know the feeling. We're not in control of. There's been people that I had, and these were the best relationships that I've grown to love. That the love grows. Like it. It starts out, it starts out positive, but it grows over time and shared experience. Like you go through things together, you go through life together, you start knowing the same people and knowing their stories, and this bond grows over time. So I've had that kind of love, and it was the strongest, it was the best, it's the one I would pick every time. But I've also had the instant, like in a flash, it just like nuclear bombs your psyche apart, and that person suddenly just works their way into your brain, and it's like that tormented infatuation. I don't even call it love, but it's like it's some kind of mirroring, and it's a part of yourself that somehow is being reflected by this person. And it happens lightning fast, and you're not in control of it. You're not even in control of who you're attracted to, really. Like the little crushes you had growing up, I was never in control of who I had a crush on. And sometimes I would have, especially when I was younger, I would have crushes on guys that I had nothing in common with in real life. I would never give the time of day to. I would never talk to. There would never be a basis for a friendship. But I had this, like, in fact, they had this powerful effect on me, like this infatuation effect, this chemical effect. And I always thought that was weird, like how I'm not in control of that. And um so when that's strong enough, yes, you're like at the mercy of something you had no control over. Just something got flipped in your brain by their image or presence or a brief little interaction or something. Um, did what feel like the pull, that instantaneous thing, or the rock music stuff? And y'all can come on panel too, by the way, anyway, if it's easier. Ooh. Oh, let me see. And I'm gonna pull. Oh, there was this one guy. I was in college, and for a few years I was gothic punk. I had my purple mohawk, my spiky dog collar that I got at the pet store, and the combat boots, the black, all that stuff. And in my little city, there wasn't a lot of us, so when we saw each other, we kind of like felt like extended family, even if we might not know each other. And there was this guy that would show up at the gay bar every now and then that also wore a dog collar. He had blue hair. Sometimes it was punked. Same as me, like the punk t-shirts, everything. He listened to the obscure underground punk music. And he was like a friend of a friend. So he was an acquaintance. So I kind of knew him, but we ourselves never talked. And I had such a just instant crush on him because he was another punk. I wanted another punk. I wanted a punk boyfriend. I didn't want a normal boyfriend. I wanted a boyfriend like me that was weird and different and punk. And he was one of the few in this little town. And I would just think about him every day. And when my friend was always like going to his house to get drunk with him. And he would tell me, he would never invite me, but he would tell me he was going, like, oh, I'm going to so-and-so's tonight, or oh, I was at so-and-so's last night. And I would get so like left out, like, I want to be, why don't I get to be, I'm like this close because I'm friends with you, but I can't actually be in the room with I don't have that connection yet. And I remember being in college in class because it was usually boring. And it was like junior high school. I would write this guy's name on my notebooks over and over and just think about it and just fantasize about it. Like we were dating. In my mind, we were dating. He was my dream boyfriend. He just didn't know it yet. And the minute I got to go to his house and we started talking about music, we were going to just fall in love, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then I ended up finally going to his house. He offered to cook chicken one night, and it was gross and nasty. He did not know how to cook. I couldn't even eat it. And there was a guy that was staying there, like off the street, that I found out he was sleeping with. And the guy had crabs, and he gave it to this guy at a crush on. And when I found that out, the crush just popped. It just evaporated immediately. And I look back and I'm like, how could I ever have a crush on this gross, disgusting, nasty thing? Just like that. That's all it took. So, but before that, I was just like, in the movies where like they're walking, but they float off the ground, their heels float because they're just so infatuated. And it felt like that. It felt like just floating, thinking about this guy. So it like takes over your mind, and you start thinking of the most positive, pleasant dream scenario that you and this person are going to live out. It's pleasant, but it's tormenting because you want the reality base of it because it's all in your head, and you want to taste it in reality, and it's just there on the edge of reality, but it's not quite in reality, and that makes it like torment even more than if it was just a fantasy. And so I don't know how the brain works or why it works that way, but that is how those are with me, and I really hate them. That's one reason I try to like cut through the initial stuff right away. Like I don't court very well. I like to just get to the heart of things. And if I feel that in the beginning with somebody, it's usually a red flag, and B, I start right away looking for all the little reasons to doubt it and falsify it and not get caught up in infatuation. So the minute I start getting that feeling, I'm like, he has dogs. I don't like dogs. He has nephews, or he does shift work, so he's not going to be available, or he travel. Like I start finding all the little negatives right away to try to like tamp down that feeling of infatuation before it gets out of control. That's just little tricks that I've learned to use, and it works. Like I don't really get swept off my feet anymore like I used to. Yeah, it's an idealization of reality. It's you. It's your brain imagining it's perfect. Like whatever we think we're here for, or whatever our brains are wired or programmed for, or whatever language you want to use. It's our like pre-experience of that in the anticipation of it becoming reality. Because our brain is just, it simulates reality anyway. It's just a big simulation of reality. So who knows? That's one thing that doing drugs did teach me, especially the psychedelics, that like how chemical the brain is, and how what we think of as brain states that feel ordinary to us can change with the right chemical. Not even like external drugs, but even internally, if you're like chemicals in your body changes, like if you get tired or don't eat or have the right nutrients, it can affect your brain state. So it's strongly tied to chemistry in the physical world. Joe R, do we know you? Who? Type in the back chat if so. I see you. I see you on camera. You're not familiar to me right now. You've been on here before. Okay. I hope I don't get porn bombed. I'm gonna do the solo first for a while, and then. All right. Let's. What's up? I'm gonna solo for a little while we chat.
All right.
Welcome. What's up?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. What's going on? Where did we run into each other?
Well, I was on the show a few times before, long ago, but then I quit YouTube for a while.
Are you IDW Joe?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. because you have hair. That's what's throwing me. What was your YouTube name?
Traditional Culture Preservation Society.
Get up here, you. Okay, I didn't know your name was Joe. Is that a pseudonym?
That is a pseudonym, yes.
What's going on? I was thinking about you the other day.
Really?
I didn't recognize. I don't because we never see you. All you had was that little icon.
Well, I'm here.
Okay, catch us up then? What's new? What's going on?
Well, I'm pretty mad at YouTube at the moment. That's why I'm not really available much lately.
Uh-oh, what did they do?
Well, I came to the realization that they're doing everything they can to try and suppress my channel, which is why I actually deleted pretty much everything on my channel. I went off YouTube for a really long time because they are the enemies of independent content creators. They are not what they claim to be. They're lying when they say that they're all about free expression. They're not all about free expression. They're, I think, an fundamentally evil organization, in fact.
What did they do to your channel?
Basically, they started shadow banning me, and I had absolute proof that they started shadow banning me. That they'd like.
Oh, I didn't know they. I know they do that on Twitter, but I didn't know YouTube did that too.
I didn't know they did it
How
either.
do you tell? Because on Twitter they have that website you can plug your handle into, and it tells you. How do you tell on YouTube?
So what happened was that I would make comments, and then the comments would just disappear as soon as I made them. And I thought they were fairly innocuous comments, but they would just poof into the thin air as soon as I made them. It's obvious that something was up.
Like on someone else's chat when you're chatting on a stream?
Yeah, or like if I were to comment on a video, I would just like raise a point, or I'd be answering somebody else's comment and I'd make it. I'd invest, sometimes a lot of time and energy into it, and then I'd refresh the page 30 seconds later, it'd be gone.
And you had the live chat toggle where it shows all the comments?
Or I had the whatever it was. It wouldn't be live chat. This wouldn't be like live streams. This would just be videos that I
Oh, you're talking about at the bottom of the video where you can leave a comment? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And you had it set to like newest first, or where it shows all the comments?
Yeah.
And your comment was gone?
Yeah.
I
don't even think that I guess the stuff I talked about was fairly spicy. Well,
that was my next question. So what was in the comment?
I was critiquing certain sacred cows that modern Westerners believe, but I don't think I was doing it in such a way as to be overly inflammatory.
Was it medical? Was it the medical stuff? Because I know they're very sensitive about that.
It was not actually even medical stuff. It was things. Oddly enough, it was things that were kind of like, I wouldn't say woke, but like they were takes that I'm incredibly shocked were as controversial as they were. Let me put it that way. Like I was trying to debunk certain claims of the red pill and the manosphere and all that crowd, and YouTube censored me for they didn't censor the people that were going along with all the manosphere and red pill crap, but they censored me trying to debunk them.
Do they tell you why when it happens? Do they tell you why? Do they send you something?
No, they don't even tell me that happened. I wasn't realizing it was happening. I started noticing that nobody was answering my comments, and then I figured out slowly what was going on.
And then so you went back and looked, and the comment was not even there.
And the comment was gone.
What does anyone know what causes that in the audience? What would, because that would make me like, I wouldn't like that either if I left a comment and went back and somebody had taken it down. Because I know in the chat, if you trip one of their filters, it takes it right away. It eats it right away, and it tells you this comment cannot be posted or something. But it looks like it handles the static comments differently.
Yeah, I didn't think I was tripping any filters. I was trying my damnedest to self-censor, but didn't really matter. I actually have a proof of this. I think one of the few videos I still have up on my channel is about this.
Mindfuck said she's had it happen too. Did you Do you think there was a way you could have worded it where it wouldn't get tripped, or was it just the content itself, no matter how you phrased it?
I think it was just that they just, for whatever reason, people get scared of what I have to say. And it's been because when I do get comments posted, everybody gets triggered. So clearly, I'm just really
Was it all your
shocking and
comments?
terrifying to people.
Was
What's
it
up now?
all your Was it all of your
It was
comments?
a huge number of them, to the point where it was luck of the draw whether it would even show up or not.
Oh, because I think people can hide you from their channel so that none of your comments show up.
Oh, so it might have been the channel owner
Yeah,
itself.
Well,
that's what Tommy did to me. I can't
So if
comment
you
on
try
none
to
of his.
comment below a video, it just won't show up on Tommy's.
It looks like I typed it, but when I go out and come back in, it's not there. Exactly.
That's what he's saying happened to him, and Sarah's saying the same thing.
I
She's
do
had
know
to
that.
rephrase it several times to get it posted. Otherwise, she just gets annoyed and moved on. So, like, maybe it's a YouTube thing that automatically eats certain
Comments,
if it
yeah.
matches the algorithm. But again, that's annoying. Like, that would be annoying for free speech if you try to have to figure out how to express yourself in a way that's not going to trip the machine, instead of just being able to say what you want to say.
And that's not even set up by the channel owner. That's done by YouTube on some
That's
of
what,
that.
yeah, that's what Joe is saying. He think that he called him evil.
Well, it is their platform. It's not a public domain.
Yeah, I only know the comments that I see in StreamYard, which is supposed to be fed from YouTube, but I don't ever see anything about comments that are being hidden. If they're being hidden, I don't ever know about them. Sometimes people in the chat will ask if people can see their comments. But other than that, I don't know if things are being hidden or not. It's not on my end. Unless I have you on the hide list, which is very few people.
It's
What's
strange
up,
where
Chuck?
they got it working.
Oh, okay. I call chat comments. I keep forgetting there's the comments because I never use them. Okay, so y'all are talking about the. All right.
Comments
Yeah, I don't
they
get a
refer
notification from that either, but I've never
to
gotten a
the
notification
video.
from anything
Yeah.
other than when people leave a comment, I get a notification. But if it's hidden, I've never been told about it.
I think there's just certain words that set off a algorithm that automatically just takes it. It doesn't even read the whole thing.
Probably so. Oh, that's not, I see. I like that. I like that YouTube gives more autonomy over the moderator for chat, but why couldn't they extend that to comments as well? Because the live chat is just as available as comments are if you have the replay turned on.
That's YouTube over
the channel owner
extending
should have
their.
the same moderation over his comments than that he does over the chat. Anyways, what you got going on tonight, Chuck?
Oh, not much. I just seen you was on, and I heard the gentleman talking about comments not being able to post, and that came to mind.
So
I
you
thought I'd just.
deleted everything off of your channel because of that?
Oh yeah. Well, in my case, yeah, I was like, I'm not going to be bothered with this crap because I mean, why wrestle against these odds that are like where everything is out there to get me, basically? When I could be out there touching grass, trying to relate to people in public forums where the powers that be can't block me because we're having actual human to human interaction. You know what I mean?
Have you been trying that? Has it been working?
I have. It's the crazy thing. Like, not only is there less censorship in the real world, but also people generally are more receptive to ideas in the real world than they are in their stupid little online bubbles too.
Me and my barber talk politics and culture stuff all the time, like while she's cut my hair, and we don't always agree on stuff, but we have very friendly conversations every time I go about all kind of topics.
Mm. Well, no, I mean that's the way it is. Like in the real world, especially if you go to like if you're in a more like working class community, people are very open to critique of the status quo, right? Like,
So it's like a uptight bougie thing.
yeah, I think so. Cause like, honestly, you know, it's weird. I have a completely different reaction when I try to talk to people online versus in the real world. And online is far worse. And maybe it's just people are more honest online, right? They're giving their honest take because they think they're anonymous. But at the same time, it's like, I can't help but just sense that there's just something far more pathological about the way that people behave in these online bubbles versus IRL. People are actually like oftentimes, you know, I mean, you're going to get pushback if you have an idea that's too controversial, too out there. But like, you know, even then it's like they're more willing to have a conversation, right? Not everything's like a blood sports, like, oh, I'm going to like demolish you because you attack my very thinly held, you know, sense of self. It's like this sort of insecurity that I see online where like people interpret an attack on any one of their beliefs as an attack on them as a person. They get like
There is some fragility. Yes, I've even seen it on here. But you can't they can't take your comment back online. Like once you say something, they can't go back and erase it like you never said it in person like they can on YouTube.
exactly. So it's I don't know, it's just you know, it's smooth, easy conversation where there's no real threat of being censored, which I find refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it in person too. I just don't. I don't. The problem is I don't get these kind of conversations. There's nowhere I can go right now to have the kind of conversations I have on here in person where I live. So
because of the area you live.
yeah, I mean, there's just not enough people like this. I,
Too
you're
much woke.
you're still typing, Frank, with your little monkey fingers. Oh. What we do? What, Chuck?
I said, is a problem is that they're too woke in your area.
That is part of it. It's or at least feminist leaning, but
Oh,
more so they're just not going to talk philosophy. Like they're not going to know Plato and Aristotle and like all the stuff we talk about on here.
yeah. If it isn't,
But
that's
it
what I
was
call
like
it.
that when I went back to Louisiana too. Nobody talked about this kind of stuff, but we had very enjoyable conversations. We talked about food. We talked about TV shows. We talked about each other and other people and memories. And so that was just as enjoyable. But I don't have people like that up here with that kind of history with. It's just strangers. Yeah. Do you know it's like when you're doing it, you know in the moment that it's nervous rambling? Or do you think you're actually saying something at the time? Because I never know either. Like to me, I'm always trying to say something important. I never think I'm just rambling. I don't get nervous though. Like if I'm nervous around someone, I'm more likely to just stay quiet than to ramble just to feel silence.
Is it due to the lack of actual being in proximity to another human being that would cause that?
I don't know. Oh, like because there's not a lot of real world experience with them, so it gets
Yeah,
magnified.
especially the
Could be.
last 3 years, 4 years, everybody got cut off from outside world, and
Mhm.
now they're feeling their way back out into the world.
Oh, and it's full of anxiety. I would be excited.
Yeah,
I'd be
pent
like,
up
"Yay, I get back in the world again. Where's the people?" But some
Yep.
people are like peeking out of their little
curtains.
yeah, and like getting nervous because it's a world full of scary people. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are reasons to be nervous about people. I just usually know how to handle myself, so I don't ever feel like I'm at the mercy of them. I can always leave them alone. Like I'm rarely stuck engaging with somebody that I don't have to engage with. I replay conversations all the time. I thought that was normal.
Do you
Just like
answer
just like
yourself?
like if I hear music, I can even you eventually you memorize this, like you know the song in your head. Same thing with conversations.
Mm.
What is it, Joe? J.R. Busk. Okay, Joe R. Busk. Well, Friday night the Panelverse. Flow's on. Oh, yeah, what I tell you, I-Fi did end up going up, and Flow is on Verbal Combat too.
Oh, is he?
Flow, I-Fi, Dave, Anana. Oh, somebody's new is coming on. Let's see who this is. Righteous Muffin. I don't know then. And
Ragamuffin?
Righteous Muffin.
Oh,
And
oh, I
Animated
don't,
Effigy. And
oh, I don't
Hornet.
know them.
And somebody
And
renamed I-Fi Village Idiot. And they renamed Flow State Flow Hate. So that's
oh,
Verbal Combat. What else is going
that's
on?
got to be Tarek. Sound like something Tarek would do.
Flow. He does come here sometimes and bring all his trolls with him. You want more trolls here, Frank? I thought this was your territory.
I thought Frank
Yeah,
was a
people will
troll.
fuck you up. The wrong people will do that to you. Yes, I get that. It it, it just takes just a very few bad experiences. I was like that in Seattle. Like I dreaded leaving my house. Like I was at the point in Seattle, especially the neighborhood I lived at, which is like woke central. It was where the Chaz started, and I would have to in the mornings when I was getting ready before I left the house and everything. I would have to like plan. Am I going to get in a fight today? How many fights am I going to get in? Am I going to fight with the barista trying to order coffee? Am I going to fight with the coworker? Am I going to fight with somebody on the because that's all they do up here. Like they fight over the littlest things, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun going to restaurants. It wasn't fun going shopping because you had to constantly be on guard of when are you going to have conflict or a fight with somebody.
Walking on eggshells. Yep.
And it's because how hostile and nasty their personalities are up here. Like they will like snap over any little thing at anybody. And so it's more
Damn.
like the environment here. I've never been that way anywhere else. And when I left Seattle, that went away too. Like I don't feel that where I am now, even though it's just a short ways away. Yeah, I tried. I had a bad one too, and I tried not to. I didn't want it to. I said it, I deliberately said I'm not gonna let this mess me up. Like I'm not gonna let this affect me too. And I tried to kind of minimize how much it still affected me. Don't get me wrong, but I think it would have affected me more if I had not taken steps to try to shield myself from some of it. Dodge and weave or something. So that's all that's going on my YouTube tonight is Verbal Combat.
Okay. Well, I just jumped up here to try to answer that question he had about the
Oh,
comment.
okay. Alrighty. Well, you're welcome.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you a little bit later then.
All right. Take care, Chuck.
Uh,
All right. I don't know if Joe is there or not, but
I'm here.
he's. Oh, okay. Well, welcome back.
What's going on around here these days?
Um, there's like little flash fires of drama that have been cropping up, but I've been trying to put them out pretty quickly. And so when those are not happening, it's actually been going pretty smoothly, I think.
Okay. I noticed you've been growing your channel, right? You got close to 300 subscribers now.
Oh, do we? That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to at least once we get to 500, I can relax a bit. But we're trying to at least hit that 500 mark, and then that'll allow us to do more, like go to the next step. Yeah, I don't because you're Canadian, Frank. That's why you're Canadian. You're not a rough redneck from the deep south. I come from an honor culture. But honestly, I'm not the one that starts it. It's the other people. They're always reacting to something, and then I have to.
Oh, it's that Seattle freeze that they talk
Yes,
about.
the
Right?
Seattle free. It is absolutely a real thing. It would be interesting for anthropologists to come and study it.
Yeah, it would be a case study of a maladaptive society.
Except the people that are in, like, the problem with Seattle is the dominant culture has adapted to each other, but it's this dysfunctional culture that nobody else. If you're not that personality type, nobody else can penetrate it. But for that personality type, they've not only adapted, they've thrived, they've dominated. Like they dominate the ecosystem up here, and everything really is geared toward their norms.
You know, what's weird is that, like, because I've never been up to the Pacific Northwest, but like the furthest west I've been is Colorado, and I thought everybody was super nice there. So I guess it's just a West Coast sort of thing.
They when I visited, I thought it was one of the friendliest cities I've ever visited. They're very polite and friendly, but if you look closely, they're treating everybody the exact same way. Like on a cruise ship or at an amusement park or something, where the staff are like the stewardess on the airline, where they just smile and are friendly and polite to everybody in the exact same way. So none of it's personal. And you think, oh, this is a friendly human being friendly to another human. That's not what it is. It's like robot programming. They're really good at giving the facade of being polite, but that cracks very early.
Just that have a
if you
nice
try
day.
to go outside of that, if you do anything that throws them off, if you ask them a challenging question or have a request that's out, they get real nasty and hostile real quick. That facade just drops.
I wonder why that is.
I don't know. When I first got here, I described it this way. I said that Frank, you probably would. This is your people. It's a reverse of the service relationship from the South, where the customer is the focus and everybody's there to make sure the customer has a good experience. So they'll come back, they'll bring their friends, they'll say good things about the place, etc. In Seattle, the service worker is at the center and the customer's there to make the service worker's job as easy as possible and not rile up the service worker or agitate them in any way. And so everything, if somebody sees a waitress or a barista getting upset, everybody comes to their aid. Again, it's like the drama triangle against the customer who's making their job, making their job hard. You know those TikTok videos of like the millennial snowflakes working at Starbucks and complaining because they have to work like 4 hours without a break or something. And it's those people. And everything is geared to their fifis.
Is it like heavily unionized up there or something?
Well, I don't know, because Starbucks tried to unionize and they closed a bunch of the Starbucks and I think they filed a complaint that it was in retaliation for their attempts to unionize. So I think when they tried to unionize, they got stopped. But then I think some kind of unionization went through anyway, because Starbucks couldn't make it seem at that point that they were trying to stop it. So I think they let some kind of union go through, but I don't know how. I know the jobs I had, some of them required joining a union. They were county or federal or state, like public sector type jobs. Um, so I know that they have unions up here. I just don't know how strong it is. My union did not do anything for me. They
Yeah,
weren't able to help me at all.
that's typical of unions in the 21st century, unfortunately.
When I got fired, I wanted a union rep with me, and he came with me. He met me that morning. We went to the HR. He came in the meeting with me, and he just sat there, and then we left. He didn't do any. I could have done all that by myself. I didn't need him for anything. I thought he was gonna like intervene or mediate or something. He just sat there.
Well, that's what union reps are supposed to be there to defend you, but I guess again everything's corrupt. I know
He was working with
everybody I
me on
know
this
that was in the
case.
AFL-CIO. They say yeah, it's completely worthless. And the Teamster, like all the people I know have ever been involved in unions are like, yeah, fuck this shit. It's totally worthless.
Yeah, that was my experience of it too. I could have just saved myself a lot of time.
My dad was in the Teamsters for years, and he was like, he always was complaining about it. He was like, yeah, like literally all they do is just drain my money. They don't do anything for me.
Or isn't it in some places? Isn't it optional where they made it where you can't be forced to
Yeah,
join
in
a union?
most southern states, they don't. They're right to work states, so you don't have to join unions.
I
But I
think in
think most.
Nevada, I didn't have to join the teachers union.
Well, here in my state, um, I'm not a member of a teachers union, but I'm a teacher, so I'm gonna assume that that's typical in
So
my
it's
state.
optional. Nobody's come and
Well,
forced you
nobody's
into
nobody's
the union.
harassed me yet, and I've been doing this for 4 years. So
So you prefer not a union, not to be in a union?
I've actually never had a union job, so I don't know. I've just heard horror stories from the people that have worked in unions.
I just don't understand what unions are for. I don't know what they do that people just can't do on their own.
Well, they were supposed to fight for basically like higher pay, better wages, and fewer hours for workers, but I guess that disappeared long ago.
Well, couldn't workers just get together and do that on their own, like organize walkouts or protests? Like, why do you need to pay an infrastructure just
So
in
that was how it
case you
started.
need them to do
Because
that?
like back in the day when it started, it was just ordinary people. But then over time, those ordinary people started forming organizations, and over time, that organization started developing its own hierarchy, and eventually started turning into just another wing of the company itself.
It sounds kind of like the woke activist.
Well, pretty much because when you think about like a lot of the woke activists are completely corporate, right? Like they're completely being propped up by these big money foundations and these
Oh yes.
NGOs and things like that. So yeah, it is very much. It's like very quickly these things that may have started out as grassroots movements don't stay that way.
Right. They ossify into these tyrannous bureaucracies. Yeah, like I don't know what they're for. Like, is my pay higher because a place is unionized because they fought for higher pay? Would it go down if unions suddenly disappear? I don't know what they do.
Well, that was the idea.
I mean, I
Is
can negotiate myself for a higher rate for a raise if I want with my supervisor. I don't need a union.
the original purpose of them was to basically make it something that happened across the board, right? That like say like I don't know in the 30s during the Great Depression, which is when the unions really got big in Michigan or some other place where you had a lot of like auto
Oh,
workers.
where the car manufacturers were.
Yeah, so like up in any like Midwestern state,
The
you
Rust
had
Belt.
like you had like the United Auto Workers, which is I don't remember the guy's name, Lewis, something Lewis. But the idea was that basically they were being made to work long hours with very little pay, and so they all got together and they organized for higher pay and better hours, which in the short run benefited them, right? Because
Yeah,
like
I admire that. I'm like, good for them. They're not going to accept those terms. So that's heroic, that part of it. But then at some point it turns into
yeah,
a
because what
bureaucracy.
happened is that what they do is they found a hierarchy and they found like a parallel organization to the companies themselves. And what ends up happening is that, people play politics and all of a sudden you start getting the same corruption. You start getting basically the same sort of behavior because, the unions one of the reasons why they were founded was to protest, violence that like the company would basically hire thugs to go in and like beat up people that weren't putting in their share. But then the
Damn.
union came in and the unions started doing the same thing. The unions literally would come in and they would hire their own thugs to beat up people that weren't paying union dues.
Damn, this sounded brutal back then. Do they still do stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there was a story like about 10 years ago about like union thugs literally showed up and just started like beating up somebody for going off the union plantation, basically.
My word. No wonder people don't like unions. I wouldn't like an organization either that did that. Sent thugs.
It's very much just almost sort of like they're like high class, high tech gangs almost. In the extreme, I obviously I'm talking about the extreme cases, right? Like the extreme like auto workers unions in Michigan or something like that. Like the teachers unions probably aren't going to like hire thugs to go and beat people up, but some of the more rough, working class unions will do that.
What? Why? Why would they beat people up? What would?
It's a way of asserting dominance, right? It's saying like, well, the union is basically we're the king, and you don't go against us. I mean, the unions rule a lot of the Midwest, a lot of the Northeast of the United States.
But
Even
how would a worker go against the union? You like talking about like crossing a picket line or something?
something like, say, like you're going on strike for whatever reason, and if you're a quote unquote scab, which means that you show up to work anyway during a strike, you could be in a lot of trouble.
They could send a thug.
Yeah, they
So
could
they
send
like kind of keep people in line through fear. That doesn't sound healthy for a workplace.
That's why a
But I
lot of
guess supervisors try to. I mean, management does the same thing.
yeah.
They
I mean, when you
carry.
think about it, a lot of HR departments are basically just they're like soft thuggery, right? They're not
Yeah,
gonna.
oh, I hate it. HR is my what? That is my like mortal enemy. I cannot stand HR departments. That is truly like me in hell. That's when the fights are going to start. Like that is a minefield for me. Is HR. Not only their little rules and policies, but the personality types. We're just ready to clash. Although the first guy that fired me was he was one of the best HR people I've ever. He was just a really good stand up guy, cared about the employees, had this personal touch, knew everybody, had a connection with everybody. So I've seen HR done right, but I definitely agree about HR departments. I avoid them as much as I can.
Yeah, it's a good strategy.
I don't want anything to do with HR. I don't even want to get a job where I even have to go through HR to get hired anymore. I just want some like little part-time side job that I don't even need a HR department for.
It's funny. Like everybody that I ever knew who ended up in an HR department was insufferable.
They really are.
I don't know any because I when I was in college, like a number of the people that were sort of in my circle ended up transitioning after college into HR departments. They're always like the people I hated. So
I don't need HR. If a job becomes too not a right fit, I'll just leave. It's not that big of a deal to me. Or if they want to start complaining or finding little things to nitpick over, they can just let me go. I don't need this big process or department. It's very simple.
yeah, I don't know, just the way that the way that corporate America does things in general is just
because a lot of it's to cover their, it's to avoid lawsuit, it's to make sure they're protected from liability, and they have all these complex rules because there's all these little loopholes people can attack them through.
but that's how you end up with a corrupt system is because when you think about it, basically, so you have all these workers that their only reason basically for being employed is to try to stay one step ahead of the system. I mean, basically, they're just pencil pushers. They're just there in order to fill a role of trying to finagle their way through a corrupt system.
Yeah, maybe. I guess the people that are able to do that. I could never do it for very long. I mean, I don't know if everybody doing it sees it that way in their mind, but they're able to do it for some reason long term. They have families to feed that motivates them, etc. I never had any of that.
Oh no, the people that are working HR departments, they're always convinced that they're heroes, right? They're always convinced that they're doing such incredible service to humanity.
I thought they were there to protect the company.
They are.
Like they're like the first
They
line
don't
of
think they're there to
defense.
protect the company.
That they're never on your side. They're always looking out for the company.
And they're always it's crazy because they're always like, I'm not to say always, but they're usually they're like super liberal too, which makes it hilarious because they're oftentimes what they are these people that will say like all throughout college they would tell me how bad corporations are, which I agree with. I hate corporations, but like they would go on and on and on about like big business and big pharma and all these like corrupt corporations. I'd be on their side, but then turned out that the moment they graduated, they showed their inner hypocrite because they went and they worked for these stupid HR departments, basically shilling for the worst corporate malpractice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. That's why I don't take these people seriously, because until they get power, you don't know how they're going to act. They try to act all idealistic and virtuous. But I don't know if they suddenly get money or power that they're going to be that way.
Pure turncoats.
But the what were we talking about with the corporations? The people. Oh, the HR. I feel the way about HR that a lot of people here feel about cops. I don't trust them. I don't think it's necessary. I think the whole HR department can be dismantled. Defund HR. That's my thing. I don't know why any anybody with a human soul would ever be drawn to HR work. But the people say that about lawyers too. So,
well, I can understand.
Frank, what is up? What is itching your little monkey butt tonight?
You should ask him to come on up on the stream. Put his money where
he
his
owes
mouth
us a
is.
Santa story. For sure. He has to wait for this is an unsafe space. He has to wait for his safety people. Which is fine. So, or any other takers? I don't know how long to keep the stream going if no one's going to show up, but at least I attempted it. I'll do one tomorrow at the usual time. You're scared of his avatar. Well, I wish we could play music or show videos of here. That sure would pass.
Can't?
Well, I mean, copyright stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very paranoid of copyright on account of I've gotten several takedown notices already.
Well, that sounds like YouTube. It sounds like the fascists that run this awful website.
Yeah. Well, copyright, I understand. I mean, I'm not so hot on the whole copyright system in general, but since we do have it, I understand, and it's often it's not even like the U.S. It's some obscure country, or sometimes Russia will copyright it in one country, and I'll get a takedown notice.
Yeah, I don't know. What's weird because like pretty much every song that's ever been written is on YouTube. So I don't understand why they copyright strike it when they also allow people. It's like they copyright strike it if you use it in a video, but if you just upload the song to YouTube, you're okay.
Like, oh yeah, like random. Yeah, I see copyrighted stuff uploaded to YouTube all the time, and I don't know how it stays up.
I
I'm
think
glad
it's
it
like
does because there's a lot of stuff I can't find, like I don't have on hard media, and it's not on the streaming services, and I'll find it on YouTube.
well,
And I'm
I
like,
think
oh,
it's
good,
like
at least it's out there somewhere.
you know it's weird because I think it's like just robo uploaded because oftentimes the person that uploaded it will be the name of the author and then comma topic or colon topic. It's like they just decided that they're gonna upload all the work of this one artist and then they have the algorithm just do it randomly.
So you think it's bots?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, bots, for preserving some of our culture, traditional culture preservation at work.
There you go.
Well, we have 3 viewers on YouTube and 5 on Twitter, and it's a Friday night. So I'm wondering how worth it is to keep going.
Is anybody in the general sphere doing like an online open panel tonight? Is Jack Talcott doing
He
anything?
streamed earlier. Easy's doing verbal combat. That seems to be where everybody is. Oh, Lord, Rant's on there, and he's off. He's off camera today. Let's watch Rant for a second. Hang on.
People in my life don't care about that states, and it's important for them to get it checked so they don't die.
I'm not telling you what to do with your ovaries. I'm not telling you what to do with your
Oh, I
body.
pray to God you don't. Please, Lord Jesus.
You don't have a prostate. I'll worry about it. Is that not my prerogative since it's my prostate?
Oh, my Lord. Okay, let's get back to the main topic at hand. You say women can't work in male-dominated forces, and you were really talking about, like,
This is a
dominated
restream.
force,
They've
like
had this
male fields,
conversation.
correct?
I'm saying women are limited by their biology. That's a fact, right? So women
Yeah.
do experience a menstrual cycle, and there are some effects with that, right? Emotionally.
I'll end it there. That's from a previous stream. I don't know why they're playing it.
Oh,
But anyway, what's going on tonight right now? Flo is on there. Emperor Dave, iFi. Unless they got kicked. If they lose a debate, they get kicked. Nope, iFi's still up there. That Noel girl, Sarah, is on. It's a full panel, actually. There's 10 of them. So this ought to be a hot time. Here, I'll put the link for everybody if y'all want to watch Verbal Combat. That's happening now. There y'all go. That could be the next stream. We started trying to do 24-hour streams where when one person ends a stream, we either try to get somebody else to start a new one or send them to an existing stream that's streaming so that there's always a stream to go to. So I'm gonna yeah. Yeah, that's why. So every time, because I saw, like, that's the first time I met Rant was that night. So every time he's come on after that, that's always the image I've had in my head. Every time he talks, every time I hear that voice, that's the image that's always gone with it. This like cocky little Italian street kid. But he's cool. I like Grant. I think he's come very far since he's been here. All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to say or end on or promote or share? I know you're downplaying your channel right now.
Yeah, I guess I just want to promote the idea of anthropological literacy, understanding that the way that we do things right now is not the only way of doing things, is not the best way of doing things, it's not even a good way of doing things, and we need to learn from other cultures if we want our own culture to survive. I am trying to like maybe do a little bit with my blog, but nobody reads my blog anyway. But if you do want to read my blog, it's called Traditional Culture Preservation Society. I'm interested in having conversations that need to be had, that absolutely have to be had, or else our society is toast because we're doing a lot of things wrong, and we need to learn from other, more tribal societies that are oftentimes doing things right and have lasted for thousands of years, and our country is struggling to make it to 300. So I guess that would be my quote unquote closing statement, if you will.
Okay. What's a good place to start, like a good starting point for anthropological literacy if somebody wants to like get a good basic grounding?
I would say anything in the human relations area files. So, which is unfortunately, it's like so many valuable resources is behind a paywall. But something that's not behind a paywall is the Ethnographic Atlas of George P. Murdoch. You can find that pretty much for free if you look hard enough. But that's only going to give you a basic sense. If you want to get like a deeper sense, look up d-place.org, which gives you like all the data in the ethnographic atlas and the standard cross-cultural sample. And particularly if you look up on Google Scholar all the citations for dplace.org, you find an incredible wealth of scholarship that deals with individual societies as well as societies and groups. And you can see just how many cultures there are out there that do things fundamentally differently from how we do them. And you could also look at the work of people like Herbert Berry for talking about things like child rearing and family structure and family organization. And you can look at the works of somebody like Joyce Benenson for understanding like gender relations. There's a lot of different resources.
No, that's a starting point. Wow. So but basically it's being aware that the way we do things in the West is not necessarily the only way there is to do something, and that there's other cultures around the world and throughout history that we can look at for other ideas.
Yeah, basically, yes.
And when I was in school, like public school, we had a course called geography we had to take, and we kind of did stuff like that. I remember we had to go through the almanac and pick different countries and write little paragraphs about their culture and their facts and stuff, and we made maps. And so I remember in my education they kind of did little, and there were like TV shows too on TV, that kind of exposed kids to different cultures around the world. So I remember a little bit of that growing up.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I grew up with the sense that there were other cultures and they did things differently, even as a kid. But it wasn't that I didn't know the details of any of it. But I at least knew that we weren't the only culture.
fair enough. I'm glad that. See, unfortunately, too many people out there, I think, don't get a proper education in cultural awareness,
Learning that.
and too many of the people that are aware of other cultures, they just make these dumb value judgments. Like I see all the time, people think, well, yeah, maybe there's other cultures, but they're all like stupid savages that don't do anything right because they're not us. But the truth is that it's hard to call somebody a stupid savage when their society's lasted for 50,000 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the stupid, the savage stereotype. I think has I haven't seen that in a while. Like I don't know that anybody sees primitive cultures as savage anymore. So much is just different.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also have to keep in mind my own lens is colored by the fact that, I grew up around hillbillies in the mountains of Appalachia who are
Oh, right. That
kind of
sounds
distrustful of things that they don't understand. But
right. Yeah, that's
I get plenty of it, even though online with the made by Jim Bobs of the world who literally screech in a very effeminate way when you start, questioning their cultural superiority narrative.
Did y'all ever get your debate?
No,
Jim Bob?
he chickened out like the cowardly little short man that he is, like 3 times, I think.
Hank
And
got to talk to him.
really,
Yeah. But I think he was kind of trying to court Jester Hank too at the same time. I think like just exploiting him for content in ways that I'm not sure Hank picked up on. So it was a little uncomfortable for me to watch. Because on the one hand, he was trying to have a sincere conversation with Hank. But
I
on the
don't
other
believe
hand, I
Jim
think
Bob
he
has
was
ever tried
using
to do
him for a
anything.
good laugh with the audience.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm of the opinion that essentially, I mean, my own experience with him is that he gets scared real easily because he's not, like he's not like Jay Dyer. Because I did have a conversation with Jay Dyer that I thought went actually pretty well
Oh.
because Jay is, he's got issues, but he is like at least a mind, right? Like he is capable of thought. I don't
Artho
think Jim
Cult
Bob is.
Jay?
I think Jim Bob is literally just like a midwit who's wandered into territory that's above his comprehension level, and so all he can really do is just get like triggered and angry every time somebody disagrees with him. And I'm not the only one who said that. Like other people say that too.
No, I've
Like,
noticed. I mean, it's on his streams. He is very volatile. I've noticed that too. But so is the crowd he hangs out with, Andrew and all those people. They're when they're the areas they're sharp in, they do really well. But then when they get out of their area and they're put on the defense, that other side of them comes out. Like they switch to a different set of tactics. But
yeah,
everybody can who watches their streams. None of that. That's all out in the open.
yeah. Which I mean, to me, it's just like, I guess the only problem with that, because I don't necessarily mind having people like that exist in the world, except that like they're getting more traction they deserve. You know what I mean? Like somebody like Jim Bob should not have however many 20,000 subscribers, given that
Well, but
like
he does.
all he can do though is just like sit and cry when people are talking above his intellectual level, which is basically the reason why he didn't want to debate me, is because he didn't want to have to face up to the fact that he might actually have to do his homework if he wants to have a conversation about traditional cultures versus like modernity. Because his whole point, the whole thing that started all that, was he made this bizarre false video where he made all these false claims trying to demonize indigenous peoples based on no knowledge and no actual research. And then when I came at him with knowledge and actual research, all he could do was get triggered and offended and turn into a little bitchy snowflake and get mad for like 2 hours, and then come up with every excuse in the book for why I wasn't worth debating after he had a 2-hour long emotional childish meltdown. Like that's not, and to be fair to somebody like Jay doesn't do that, right? Like Jay was willing to platform me, and we actually had, a pretty decent conversation, and he kicks people off his show a lot and he gets mad at people, but we actually had a fairly cordial exchange. Myself and Jim Bob could never have that because Jim Bob is just too much of a girly man.
Well, probably not. I mean, I don't know. I think I saw that original episode you talked about where he was talking about the indigenous people, but I don't watch Jim Bob that much because he usually streams the same time I do. That's another reason.
He used to allow people to call into a show, but that disappeared for some odd reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was actually right about the time I tried to call into a show that it disappeared.
Oh. Well, I don't know. Did he ever have Machine on or get to talk to Machine?
No. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Like, remember, because he bitched for hours and hours after Machine had Adam Green on, and then he was lurking in the comments, and we both challenged him to a debate, and he made every excuse in the book. So like, this is a married man in his 40s with kids, spending his Saturday night sitting there seething in the comments of a channel that he claims is beneath him, making up every excuse in the book for why he doesn't want to debate either one of us.
Well, what's his face? Adam Green or whatever was on the Crucible like yesterday or day before.
Oh, well, see, but that's okay though, because it's okay if he's going into an audience where he's going to be, debated and treated with hostility. The bad thing is the problem that Machine Lies had is that Machine Lies gave him like something other than clowning him. I mean, like he was actually treated as though he was a serious person with actual things to say. And in Ortho Bro.
Oh, so Andrew is just using him for content.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh right, yeah.
It's the same thing he does with like Andrew does that with all kinds of. Andrew had Mr. Girl on and just savaged him the whole time. Andrew had like various groypers on and just savaged them the whole time.
I think he made up with the groypers.
Really?
Yeah, he did a big truce calling episode.
Oh, interesting.
He said, we just got to put this behind us. It's not in our interest to fight. I'm not going to talk about them anymore, and they're not going to talk about me. So interesting.
I guess all's fair in love and war and all that jazz.
Well, 2024.
Yeah, what a year to be alive.
Yeah, this is like I thought the Trump-Hillary election was one to watch, and then the Trump-Biden thing, which happened in the middle of COVID. But this, I think, is going to be the election, the election of a lifetime, and it's between two people we've already had. It's not like it's even between new people, and it's somehow still managing to be a momentous election.
To be honest, like I'm not even paying attention to it. I'm just over.
I'm not either. I'm waiting to see what happens with these trials.
Like I'm not even paying attention to the trials. I'm like, just like, dude, like this whole system is just dumb and broken. Like,
are you that black-pilled?
I have zero intention of ever voting again in my life. Like,
wow,
it's just.
Hey, well, you're at the mercy of the rest of us. I'll try to vote wisely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like.
Hope you like my choice.
I mean, honestly, I don't even care anymore. Like what? It's this whole thing has become a joke. Like we're literally about to like elect one of two 80-year-old men.
Yeah. What are we gonna do? Unless somehow at the last minute a spoiler candidate shows up or the VP picks come into play somehow.
I mean,
but it was the same choice we had 4 years ago, just 4 years older. But that 4 years makes a difference when you're up in that age range.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, and to be fair, and 4 years ago, both candidates were clearly losing their mind, and it's only gotten 4 years worse since then.
Right. I know. This is a tough one. It really is. It's really going to help me clarify some values for myself, because that's what it's going to come down to, is which value is the most important. Well, I don't think Jim Bob would have a beer with him. I think Joe would have a beer with any of them. I don't think they would have a beer with him. Although you've gone on Andrew's show before. Andrew's talked to you.
Yeah, no, I actually had a debate with Andrew, which, it's weird because like Andrew can be cordial. Like I would say all of them.
Oh, I've noticed that too. He has a completely different personality when he's debating people he likes than people that irritate him or that he doesn't like.
And that's the thing. And it's very strange because like I would say all the hardcore Ortho Bros, all the like big ones on YouTube, right? Like the individual ones, like freaking Slow Boy Whiteboard, are irritating as hell. But like the big ones that like have channels, I actually was able to like at least sort of kind of get along with all of them except for Jim Bob. Like Jim Bob is just the one who I think is just such a fragile ego. And I have, because I have a pretty strong manner when it's something that I care about. And I think like Jim Bob's, he just has such a fragile, like little boy bullied in school ego, that he just
Maybe
can't
so.
put it past him, the fact that I know more about these subjects he claims to be an expert in than he does.
Also, I don't think knowledge matters much to Jim Bob. I think he goes by argument. He's not big on sources or how much somebody knows, or look at this link or read this book or look at this Wikipedia article. He just wants you to tell him an argument that he can either affirm or attack.
Well, he wants to play these precept word games, which is
So if you show up with a bunch of information, I don't think I've never seen that do much for Jim Bob at all.
Well, that was the issue when I was challenging him, is that but he basically, all he could do is play precept word games, where basically every point of evidence in favor of my theory and against his theory is just a sign that like I'm biased, right? It's like nothing matters except for his own like mental state, which he's going to justify by saying, well, I can't give an account for anything because I'm not a member of the Orthodox Church, even though the Orthodox Church doesn't have any position on indigenous.
Well, Andrew does that too. He does that dodge all the time. He wants to argue from an Orthodox position, or at least a religious position very close to Orthodox. But then when you press him on details, he says he's not qualified. Like he's not an official Orthodox or something. He's not qualified to do apologetics. So then suddenly becomes apologetics and it becomes off limits. So he does kind of play bait and switch with that.
It's weird though with Jim Bob's case is that like I can have the exact same conversation I tried to have with Jim Bob with Andrew, and he won't do precept even once, right? Like
Andrew won't.
Yeah, the debate I had with Andrew, nothing
like you
precept related came up ever. The debate I had with not the debate, but the attempt at a debate I had with Jim Bob was literally him getting like increasingly emotional and increasingly losing control of himself over the fact that
Andrew to me. I've seen Andrew do that.
I don't know.
Guess he didn't do it with you.
Well, I haven't seen what much of what Andrew's done like post 2023. He struck me as being somebody who, in the debates I did see with him, I was impressed with the fact that he was able to not do this. He was not overly reliant on this precept garbage to the point that like somebody like Jim Bob can't do anything without relying on it. It's like a crutch for him. And it's like a stupid crutch because he doesn't even do it right. Like the way Jay Dyer does precept at least makes some sense. The way Jim Bob does it, it is literally just like an attempted shield to keep him from having to deal with the facts. It's like very midwit tier. And I saw it because my whole point was I was just trying to have this conversation about like, hey, there are people out there that will promote the idea all throughout history, have been saying, positive things about these indigenous tribal cultures, including a lot of Christian missionaries will come in and they'll say like, hey, hang on, maybe these cultures aren't so bad as the fundamentalist religions that we are trying to promote say that they are. And his response was to get mad and like accuse all the missionaries of just being liberal. And I mean, and it's like, and I immediately saw it's like once I brought that up, hey, there's a lot of Christian missionaries that are, also saying the same thing I'm saying. It's like at that point, like he got this look on his face of both anger and fear at the same time. And at that point, he just lost control of his emotions and started screaming for the next hour. It was incredible. I mean, it was.
This is all on stream.
Embarrassing display I've ever seen for a 40-year-old man in my life. Like I'm a teacher. I teach middle school kids, and they don't act as childish as Jim Bob acted for the next 2 hours after that. It was unique, almost unique in my life for me to see somebody act that immature.
And I'm so used to it. Is that the last of your interaction or attempt at interaction?
It was the second to last because the last, I guess, was when we were on the machine stream and Jim Bob was sitting there lurking in the comments, ignoring his family on a Saturday night before Divine Liturgy, sitting there seething and coping in the comments. And both of us challenged him to come on the stream, and he made every excuse in the book for why he wouldn't do it. That was my last interaction with Jim Bob.
Okay. So, and I haven't really heard much about him at all since then, other than Hank went on the show, like, I don't know, a month or so ago.
I'll have to watch that because Hank is somebody who I respect. And I would like to see him or really anybody go in and demolish Jim Bob.
Well, that's why I watched it, because Hank announced that he just demolished Jim Bob to everybody. But then when I went and actually watched it, it's very ambiguous who demolished who. I can't find his show for some reason. I'll try to find the video. Hank calls in. Here it is somewhere. Here, I'll try to timestamp it. All right, it's somewhere around here. There we go. Why does he have all this not today Jesus? He has a little rainbow Baphomet. He has all this like satanic unicorn stuff in his background. Jim Bob does. Gotta be a joke, but
he does a lot of weird stuff though. Like because he used to be a cartoonist, right? And he used to like have his cartoon art up everywhere, and it would be like it would basically be like pictures of like a guy with like 100 inoculations in his body and blood pouring out everywhere. It was just weird. Because it was almost like
on current events. He puts little images related to current topics.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's almost this one of those deals where it's like he has this lurid fascination for the things he doesn't like. And that's something that I've noticed about like a lot of these guys is that they, and I think it's interesting because a lot of them, they're, very puritanical, very sexually repressed, but they're obsessed with sex at the same time, which is, is exactly what you'd expect if sexual repression and puritanism were unhealthy. But that seems to elude people like this.
I think Jim Bob's sexually doesn't he have a wife or married with children?
He has a wife, and his wife has kids. I'm not sure if they're his, but
oh, well, he's a good stepdad then. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about his personal life except there's like a rumor that his wife is a degenerate that goes to porn conventions and takes their kids there. Takes her kids there.
That seems like a weird choice of a wife for Jim Bob. How sure are you about that rumor?
Well, I'm sure that it's a rumor. I'm not sure that it's true.
My senses are going off. I don't know. It just Jim Bob doesn't seem like the type to marry a porn star.
Yeah. Again, I can't confirm that the veracity of the rumor, but I know it's been spread around the internet.
And still is.
I suppose so. Because I remember I heard about it, after the whole big blow up over Adam Green, that prompted people to go out and do a critical investigation of the guy. I mean, he's clearly has, if not actual skeletons in his closet, he clearly at least has like somewhat credible accusations that he's not quite as pure Which all the Ortho Bros are like that, right? Like Andrew's had scandals. Jay hasn't exactly had scandals, but he's had like questionable things too, right? Like
starting a cult.
Yeah, like well, I mean, like he had a big there's a big controversy a few years ago because his wife very heavily implied that she was into like witchcraft, occult stuff, and Jay didn't exactly go along with it, but at the same time he would do things like pose in front of inverted crosses, and again it wasn't like there wasn't hardcore evidence in favor of any claims, but it was like there were certain things that stacked up that a lot of people that weren't big fans of Jay used as ammo against him. And his wife being a witch thing, like that's pretty much been proven. It's not been proven that she's still a witch, but it's proven that years and years ago she was.
Why do people come like his wife's a witch and they come on stream and they denounce degeneracy and I assume occult and witchcraft. Jim Bob's married to a porn star and denounces degeneracy. Joe Cool's married to a white lady and comes up here and denounces white people. What is with these panel heads that end up on these streams? Of course, these are just rumors that you said. Are not in Joe's case. I think he really is with the white lady.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it would just be weird that Jim Bob's married to a porn star after all the stuff he says on his stream, or that Dyer, who I don't even know, is married to a witch. That would just be weird.
It would, but on the other hand, there's a lot of I've found that these internet personalities usually are pretty sus, and the more successful they are, the more sus they are.
Like meaning like they have a background, like shady background or something.
Yeah, obviously you look at somebody like Nick Fuentes, he's had a ton of scandals. You look at somebody like Andrew, for instance, like he's had a lot of scandals, and those ones have been pretty much proven.
Well, we're here. I don't know of any Andrew scandals.
Well, he had apparently most of the kids he was raising weren't his, and the way he publicly presented his marriage.
Was he trying to pass him off as his? Because that's not a scandal to me. If another man wants to step up and like help father someone else's kid, I admire that. The
issue though is that he had tried to present his family as being like this super base trad, conservative, orthodox, patriarchal, old-fashioned family, and then it turned out that basically it turned out it was hypocrisy, right? Like there was nothing that he had done in his life that if he had openly admitted from the get-go would have been a scandal. But the scandalous thing is that he tried to present this 50s Stepford Wives image of his.
I never really got that from Andrew or Rachel, but it sounds like the scandal was in the heads of the people watching the show with no ability to like discern reality from, because they don't touch grass. So it's internet. I see this happen on the streams all the time, not even just Andrew. It's coming from them. I never got the impression that Andrew's primary presentation was as this Stepford 50s trad family, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's what people are holding Andrew to, I think they're bringing that to it themselves. So to find out that Andrew has stepkids or something, it's not a scandal to me, because that's not his main platform, is pretending like he's this traditional family, which even traditional families can have stepchildren, and the Brady Bunch has been around even before I was born, and stepkids were normalized. So to have stepkids be a scandal at all for anything is just weird.
Yeah, I'll try telling that to the ultra purist incels that make up the majority of his audience.
Well, they still watch him, huh? I know he's caught up in that, like, what if podcast, or
Oh, whatever.
Fresh and
Oh,
Fitters.
yeah.
Yeah, like
That's
that.
to me. That's the real Andrew scandal is the way he's just like simping for the red pill right now. And I mean, I know he's sort of saying that he's against them, but like at the same time, it's like he's basically what he's doing right now is he's basically whoring himself out for content with these just really
Yeah, but he's
people.
he's a YouTube content creator. Flow State does the same thing. That doesn't jar
No,
on me
I
to
mean, like,
hear that somebody on YouTube is whoring themselves out for content.
I guess what I'll say is that for me, as somebody who's more of an ideologue, like like because I see somebody like Destiny do the same thing, but the difference is that like Destiny's going on there and he's pushing back and he's like he's actively, although he's
Do
I
you
guess
think he actually believes what he advocates for?
I think he does enough that he can make coherent arguments in favor of it. I mean, like he's Destiny is able to go on these podcasts and challenge in serious ways this whole manosphere red pill ideology, whereas Andrew, I don't think is able to, because the problem with Andrew is that like basically the only real critique he has of any of these guys like Rollo Tomasi and Fresh and Fit and like the only critique he has is that like, well, these people aren't sufficiently Christian. But if we could have just a Christian version of their maladaptive, bizarre, cynical, overly cynical worldview, then that would be correct. And I don't think that that's helpful at all.
Well, you just have to put out a better message than Andrew then, because that's the message that's resonating right now and getting the numbers.
I know, but that's because of the fact that the same algorithm that shadow bans people for trying to push back is rewarding Andrew for whatever reason.
But he's lost his channel before. YouTube's taken him down.
Yeah.
This is like his second. He had to regrow an entire channel.
He has. I mean, I remember that because my very first ever debate on the channel was right after they lost their channel, and it was a Rumble only debate as a result.
Oh. I mean, I see them as just YouTubers like anybody else. I don't hold them to any special standard. So if people are, that's on them.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only thing for me is that because I'm concerned about messaging and like the Overton window, right? And right now, the big thing one of the big things for YouTube and for content creators is this whole red pill thing, and that's shifting the Overton window in a way that I think is really maladaptive for society. So to me, anybody that's capitulating to that rather than trying to fundamentally fight against it is, in my understanding, complicit in a lot of problems and is in a small way responsible for making society worse.
Well, where I might be one of those people. Where do you see it shifting?
I see it shifting towards this biological determinist sort of evolutionary psychology worldview that basically teaches people to be distrustful of each other, and it actually impacts our ability to get along as a broader humanity.
So these red pill people, like the whatever guys, are telling men and women not to trust each other. Or
Yeah,
their guests
like
are telling each other that?
if you look at like somebody like Myron Gaines, if you look at somebody like Rollo Tomasi, I mean that's basically the crux of their message is that men and women are like rivals.
I don't trust
right?
women either, and I'm not even straight.
You do not trust women like as an entire group or individual?
Well, put it this, and it's through experience. I'm much more cautious around women than I would be with men, and they have to work a lot harder to earn my trust, and it's never 100%. I'm always ready for it to collapse or be withdrawn. But I could go back to Louisiana and not have that issue with the women there at all. So it's not just women, but it's like this. It's a lot of women.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that would imply that it's sort of like a cultural social learning phenomenon rather than just like a biological reality, right?
I think about that all the time because and you may be right. One of my biggest issue seems to be their hyperreactivity or neuroticism, where they will react and hyperventilate and have like panic attacks over something that I won't even notice or other men won't even notice. So is that sensitivity biological, or is it cultural, or have they just not, were they born that sensitive? Was it taught? Were they taught that men are scary? Or are they just not desensitized toward men? Like, were they just sheltered from men and they're like a strange alien species, and when they're around them their nervous system, I can't figure out how much is biological, but it seems like a lot of it is. It's like a chemical reaction.
Well, if it were biological, then it would be true across the board, right? Universally in every culture.
Yeah, that's the mystery, is how does it show up so universally in one region but not in other regions? But it seems like it has, like, the reaction seems so quick and instantaneous that it's like when you, if you're walking, you see a snake and you jump, like it's that quick. It's an instinct. So that seems biological if it's going to happen that fast.
Not
But they're
necessarily
reacting to something that they're culturally taught, like in the early periods where white people were taught racism. They were taught black people were inferior or separate, like race or whatever, and that was learned. And so when they saw a black person, they got nervous because they were around these people that they were taught were savages or whatever. And now we know better, so white people don't have that reaction around black people like they used to.
But I
But
would
it's
say
like
that
some women still have that fear response around men, but I don't know how you would have that if it wasn't taught.
Well, even to go to the the race thing, like, I don't know if you're familiar with like the implicit associations test, but and the test, to be fair, it gets a lot of criticism. Like, I'm not necessarily saying
Well,
like, oh,
didn't the
yeah,
creators themselves debunk it or come out and say they
well,
can't?
they came to the conclusion that it was possibly not for real, right? Like, it was. So I'm not at all defending it, but the idea of the test was to attempt to show that at the gut level, a lot of white Americans are still more or less racist.
I don't believe that, and I believe that's taught. Like, you can put little white and black babies together and they will play just fine until some adult comes and says, "Why are you playing with that black child?" And then the baby starts to pick up that there's something like objectionable about what he's doing. And the
Do you not
same with,
think that the same thing?
you can put men and female and male babies together and they'll play. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
the female toddlers don't instinctively recoil from the males.
Yeah,
In
well,
fact,
that's the thing.
where I come from, the women were the ones mostly dominating the play.
But that completely, I would say, though, supports the thesis that I'm promoting, which is that this is completely a culturally bound, learned phenomenon. That everything you're talking about is something that's the result of maladaptive social programming. It's one of the major problems with Western
I
society.
think it's maladaptive for women to be as petrified of men as they seem to be. Like, androphobia, I believe, is maladaptive. But if you tell that to the women, they're going to say they have to protect themselves from assault. So apparently, every time they leave their house, hiding around every bush is a sexual assault waiting to happen that they can't protect themselves from.
That's and that's because the media is basically pushing fear porn 24/7. It's because of the way that they're being raised by their parents. I mean, one of the major
So you don't think women have as much reason to be scared around men as they think they do? Because it only takes one bad experience for you
No,
to
I
get
would
that
say that
caution.
I would say that effectively what's happened has been going on for a while. It's not necessarily a new thing, but for years and years, really, like the Western tradition for centuries, unlike a number of other traditions in other parts of the world, the Western tradition in particular has been one that's been built to a large extent on gender essentialism and gender segregation, right? Like, where men and women occupied more or less different spheres, different worlds from a relatively early age. You look at like the Victorians, and they went to different schools, and like men and women weren't even supposed to really understand each other. And
resonates with me.
but my point is that situation, that social programming breeds reality. So like ultimately people end up internalizing those messages, but that doesn't, just because people internalize them doesn't mean it's natural, biological, and sure as hell doesn't mean it's healthy, because that actually causes a lot of pathologies, that cause a lot of failed marriages, that cause a lot of, serious issues with male female relations that maybe don't exist in, like, among a group like the Pueblo Indians, who don't go around making these bizarre
But
mistakes.
we don't live as Pueblos. We don't have the same material circumstances as Pueblos. We're on a completely different scale of civilization with different needs. I don't know that the Pueblo lifestyle would fit us as a modern society.
But we're still human, and what works for humans in one society should be at least suggestive of what we should do. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that,
I
like,
have no problem with people suggesting ways of living at all.
the thing though that makes it all difficult, and this is why, despite however many years of feminism and sexual liberation, sexual revolution, all this, like, we haven't really gotten rid of these basic norms related to gender segregation, related to differential ways that we raise our sons and daughters, is because of the fact that, like, for this to actually happen, it would necessitate a broader cultural shift to the point where we fundamentally all get together and decide we're not going to raise our children, we're not going to inculcate our children with these sorts of values anymore, right? Like, and
So like we're just going to raise everybody as the same gender? Like there's not going to be any gender difference?
not
So what does
necessarily
that do
that,
for
but
reproduction?
we're not going to
Nature
necessarily,
forces you into a gendered role.
not necessarily that, but I would say that, like, so like you look at Herbert Berry, who's a guy that I mentioned, I think, a little bit earlier. He co-authored with a few other people back in the 1970s a great paper called "Traits Inculcated in Childhood: Cross-Cultural Codes." And what he did was he and a number of other authors worked together to analyze every society in the standard cross-cultural sample by how they, by the values that they inculcate both male and female children with. And he found that in the majority of societies, for the majority of values, there wasn't a gender difference in terms of how they inculcated their children. So, like, let's say something that in our society is heavily gender coded is competitiveness. Men are supposed to be competitive, women are supposed to be cooperative, and
Yeah,
that's
because biologically men produce chemicals that make them more aggressive and competitive.
oh, hang on. Wait,
You toddlers are competitive. I think I was like beating up other babies for their toys when I was little.
well, so you think that in every culture, men end up becoming more competitive and women become more cooperative?
That's probably a tendency, but maybe in some cultures there's people that step in when the baby tries to steal the toy and say no, we don't do that, and after enough of that, the child might like curb that competitiveness. But if you let their natural tendency go and just put them out in the wild, I would hypothesize that probably men in general would be the one competing and knocking each other out for resources than the women
Well,
who
why would that
seem
be,
to like
though?
gather in numbers and be more cooperative and collectivist.
Why would that be?
It like nature.
Well, but the problem is that the ethnographic record indicates that quote unquote nature doesn't apply consistently. So my point is that it's hard to see it as being something that's a natural reality.
Nature, I see it as a tendency. That's what I'm saying in general. I'm not saying every woman and every man. I'm just saying if you look at the spread over time, more women will probably gravitate to that second mode, and more men will probably gravitate to a more competitive mode, just from natural urges, from the hormones and chemicals running through their body. They're very different physiological bodies.
So do you think that these, so because I'm trying to understand your position. So is your position then that basically that culture would have to try like extra hard to override this nature that in the natural sphere of things?
I would take an opposite. I wouldn't say try to override. I would say culture should work with existing human nature and biological and evolutionary tendencies.
Well, right now I'm not saying like what it should do. I'm saying what it does do. Because like, so for instance,
I think it does both. I think you can find cultures where it does both. I think you can find some where it works with the natural differences, and I think you can find some where it does try to force a more rigid, like, experience of the gender with different outcomes for different genders. So that's why I think it's both. I don't think we're a blank slate. I think not only men and women, but individuals, every human being comes in with a different set of traits unique to them. But certain traits tend to cluster more in males than females and vice versa. So if you're building a society, and I don't think you have to do this consciously, because I think as the society develops, this is going to naturally emerge anyway. But you build it around those obvious differences, and the exceptions you can have very flexible policies for, and that still include the exceptions.
But even with that, though, because it would be difficult, I would say, to determine what the baseline difference between men and women are if you end up with, and this has been found time and time again, if you end up with a situation like that, which prevails in matrilineal societies where these supposed biological gender differences get reversed, right? So, like, people have done studies of the Khasi tribe in northeast India, who are a matrilineal tribe, and over again, and they've replicated this multiple times. Women are more competitive in the society and men are more cooperative, which indicates at the very least that whatever biological programming there that goes in can be successfully overridden by culture.
I'd
And
have to look at what form that competitiveness takes and that cooperativeness takes to fully understand. But also, we're not Kofefi tribe or whatever. Like, we don't have their nature and their genetics and their wiring and their like evolutionary inheritance. We have the more Eurocentric one.
even if there's some truth to the idea that, well, hey, there's been selection for certain traits in our culture, and there's been selection for other traits in Khasi culture, for instance. But the fact that there has been differential selection in the two cultures would indicate that theoretically it's possible, though, that there could be that the selection pressures could change in our culture, right? Like that one day in our culture, if male competitiveness becomes less valued or female competitiveness becomes more valued, you can have the selection pressures change in such
Yeah,
a
but
way.
we're kind of seeing that now, where we're getting these bitchy girl bosses and society's going to shit as a result. But where do these selection pressures show up in society? I'm all for letting individual families, like parents, decide how to raise their children. I don't think we need a societal movement on how to raise children society. I think that's an individual decision. But where do these selection pressures show up? If they do change, where would we notice it? Media or social media or movies, or where in culture would we see these pressures, and what form would they take?
I would say that they'd pretty much, to actually be successful, they'd have to be everywhere. They have to be in media as well as in the home.
So
As
if you
well.
show people enough pictures of women being competitive and women and men like sitting around homemaking and doing things collectively, men would actually start to become that way, and women would actually start to become these Amazonian warriors that go out there and conquer and
No, not just show by showing.
my experience
It wouldn't be
doesn't
enough,
hold it
but
up. I've interacted with enough men and women, I feel like, to feel like there's this essential biological difference that I can pick up on, regardless of, like, I don't know that that's going to be altered by any mass media advertising campaign to try
I
to make
didn't
men
say
and
it was
women be a
just a
certain.
mass media. I would say that it would have to be a total cultural shift, right? Like it would have to be something that
I don't
mass
think
media
we're
is
such
part of.
blank states that you can override biology with culture. I think there's always going to be some biology, some evolutionary, or toddlers, babies, infants have inner motivations that are not tied to any culture around them, because they don't have the ability to even be aware of that shit yet. they have these drives. So I think any cultural plan you have is going to have to confront these drives at some point and reconcile themselves to them somehow. You can definitely program, like, if you want to be really cruel and sadistic, you can Pavlov your child into be this. We see it all the time with like upper class parents, pageant moms, Hollywood moms, tiger moms that rigidly try to override the infant's nature at a very early age and program them to turn out to be the doctor or the lawyer or the celebrity performer or the pageant queen or whatever. So yes, you can do that to children, apparently, some children anyway. I don't think that's good for society. I don't think that's the direction we want to go.
Well, do you think
I
that
would
that's
fight something like that.
do you think
I
that
would
that's
let
what
their
the
natural nature, every child is this beautiful, special snowflake with a unique nature. I would try to identify what that nature is and then scaffold around that and give them the supports for that acorn to turn into whatever magical oak tree it's designed by nature to turn into.
well, do you think that the Pavlovian nightmare scenarios that you pointed out, do you think that that's what they're doing in like Kasi culture and or in Demasic culture, these other cultures?
No clue, no idea. You
'Cause
would be better
I
positioned.
don't think, I mean, again, traits inculcated in childhood doesn't mean traits
Like
really in
I
childhood.
grew up with families that some of them were more strict and would spank and discipline their kids. Like I've watched friends get spanked and disciplined. I've watched very strict parents that punish their kids. So even within my own culture, I've seen different households use varying degrees of severity to condition children. And I haven't seen much, like the kids that grew up from strict parents did seem less happy. They seem more depressed. They seem more resigned to life, less personal agency, etc. So
Absolutely. I mean,
I don't think those are
corporal
good. I
punishment
would
is
not
bad.
support those kind of methods, no matter what
Yeah.
the the larger goal was.
No, I think we can agree. In the adaptive societies in the ethnographic record generally avoided corporal punishment as well for that very reason.
Like I'm not big on corporal punishment anyway. Like if I had kids, I doubt I would use it for anything. I
Yeah,
might
well,
slap their
I
hand
don't think
away
it
from a
has.
hot
I mean, I
stove,
think
but I
that
don't consider that.
I agree with the literature, like the sociological literature, since like I think the 1940s has been pretty clear that corporal punishment is a disaster. It doesn't actually do it. Basically, all the things it tries to accomplish, it fails to accomplish, and it ends up creating a lot of problems along the way.
But what you were talking about wasn't even that. It was like propaganda or media or like making sure this message gets
no,
out
I'm
everywhere
saying
we
it's the
can
culture,
possibly put it, that
culture
women
change.
are warriors and men are nurturing collective quilt makers.
That was
And
no,
then all of a
that's
sudden the men will become that way and the
trauma, and
women will become
that's not
another
the
way.
point I
And
was
their
making.
nature, their biological nature will be overridden. People tried that with gay people. They tried it with autistic people. We have nature. You have to accept it at some point and work with it. You can only override it with culture so far. It did not work on the gays. It does not work on the autistics. It's not going to work on the Satanists. You cannot have only culture be the solution to your utopia.
Well, wait a second, because I mean, I think you misrepresented a lot of the points I was making, but to deal with the most recent point, so again, I think that the issue that we're going to run into though is that a lot of is that if there was this overriding biological nature that can't be overridden, you wouldn't expect to see multiple instances, many instances.
Then
In
how come
Western
conversion
societies.
therapy doesn't work on gay
Well,
people?
that has nothing to do with the point though that I'm making about like
It absolutely
non-Western
does. How does it
society.
not have to do with the point you're making? It's about overriding nature,
Because I'm
overriding essential biological nature is what conversion therapy attempted to do.
because
And
I
they were
don't
not
because
successful.
I don't buy that that gender differences and competitiveness are completely biologically determined, and I think
I
that
never said completely, but there
I don't
appears
buy
to
that
be
they're
a
biologically determined
significant
enough
biological component.
they're clearly not biologically determined enough that they.
Well, I think you have to look at enough like infant baby, and watch them develop before they're like interfered with society to get a good baseline idea
Hang on,
of
but
the levels of
we've
aggression and
done those.
competitiveness in males versus females. And I'm sure these studies are out there, and I'm sure they're even observed in the animal kingdom. So
Well,
nothing I'm saying sounds weird.
We've done this research, and because there's this guy Simon Baron Cohen, he attempted to prove his theory was that like he called it the empathizing systematizing theory.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. And Christopher Badcock did some additional work on it.
But what he did was he tried to come up with these studies of babies and use them to argue for the theory, but the problem is that they kept on failing to replicate, and this was exposed in meta-analyses that pretty much all the gender differences he was looking for in babies couldn't be replicated. And if you actually looked at what the overall literature indicated that in infancy there's very little gender difference in anything to do with personality.
Well, my experience doesn't bear that out. I've noticed hundreds of differences in male babies and female babies like throughout my life as they develop. And oh fuck, I lost it. It'll come back. Shit, it's right there on the tip of my brain. You were talking about research, gender differences, not being essential, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, you know how trans people try to convince you they're actually like they want you to see them as women and believe that they are how they see themselves as. I feel like I get the same feeling from you about this argument, where you want me to believe that that there are certain traits that are more prominent in males and females that can just be swapped out from one gender to the other, and there's no biological basis that limits that. And that's as fantastical to me as trans people trying to get me believe that they're a different gender in their mind than their body is, that there's something different in their body.
The reason why trans people exist is because of their
neither one seems to want to allow for any kind of biological reality. You don't allow for it culturally, they don't allow for it individually, but biology is real. We are our bodies, and they contribute to our psychological experience of ourselves,
but only in some cultures, because like I said,
culture, biology is, there's no culture where biology is not significant some way. The embryo in the womb, the baby and the infant precedes culture. Culture comes after the infant has developed his own individual unique trait and then he's introduced into culture. Culture is not there first. It succeeds biology.
So are the Kasi biologically divergent from us? Do Kasi girls get born into the world being more competitive than Kasi boys? Do you think that's what's going on?
Say that again.
Do you think that in the Kasi tribe, do Kasi girls get born into the world being more competitive than Kasi
but you have
boys?
to answer my gay question, because you're saying that even if they come into the world full of this competitiveness, somehow coffee culture is able to socialize that out of them. Why can you not socialize homosexuality out if it's that easy?
Because
I'm skeptical of your claim that their aggression is being socialized out. I need to study it more. I'm skeptical because I have experience with the conversion side of it.
No, but again, that's the reason that's not relevant to my point is because my point isn't that there's these biological gender differences that these matrilineal cultures are socializing out. My point is that there aren't biological differences, and so therefore,
then we're further apart.
We're inculcating kids in one way, and are historically
we're even further apart than we realize. You're a blank slatist, that I'm absolutely not.
I'm not a blank slatist.
It sounds like you are. Or you are. If you're not a blank slatist, you're a pretty. It's pretty clear. The plate is pretty clean.
No, I absolutely have no.
You're like 90% culture, maybe 10% biology, and I'm much more of a balanced view. And I think it's individual. I think there are some people that are born with really strong natures that culture is going to have very little effect on, and I think that there's other people that are born with like like not very strong natures that culture is able to just come and write on top of. I think without looking at it at the individual level, your studies are reductive. That's my issue with it. It is reducing people to a cultural influence that you're giving more importance to than all of these other factors. And I think it's a reductive worldview. I don't think it is faithful to the rich, complex, nuanced experience of human beings as individuals. Individual biological organisms, let me say.
Okay, so the question though, yeah, and I get that, like, obviously, and this is why I think that this is a straw man, because I'm not arguing from a position of, oh, well, I think that you're just like a complete biological determinist. I'm trying to actually like tease out exactly what your position is.
You've
And
seen
how you
cultures.
deal with the question that I'm that I'm bringing up of, you know, if there are these tendencies, these inborn tendencies, these inborn differences, then what is your explanation for the differential presentation between human cultures?
We're not coffee people. Like in the West, for whatever reason, we can't seem to socialize these differences out as easily as they do. So I need more information. I can't answer your question without knowing more about these other cultures you're talking about, what they're actually doing, what they're actually socializing. All I have now is your summary of it. And I would need way more detail than just that to begin to understand it. So I can't give you an answer to your question, but I am skeptical based on my own experience with our Western nature and our Western urges and impulses and attempts to socialize that out. And then things like homosexuality or even fetishes and kinks and strong preferences, taste preferences, food preferences, etc. Hey, Denizen.
I like Detroit style pizza.
You like what?
Detroit style pizza.
I've never heard it. What makes it Detroit? I've heard of New York and Chicago. Is that the one you eat folded up?
No, that's a New York slice.
Oh, okay. Let me look up Detroit. See.
Detroit. What makes the Detroit style pizza is first the pan you use. You use a steel pan, so it kind of griddles the crust.
It's square. It's Little Caesar style.
It can be square, yeah. You also want to put cheese all the way to the edge, and then you bake it very high.
So it has.
And
they
usually use cubes of cheese instead of shredded cheese so that it doesn't burn. And the cubes of cheese, the oil gets released from the cheese while it's cooking, and it drips down over the side of the steel pan, and it fries the outside of the crust. There's a lot less sauce on a Detroit style pizza. You put just a couple of stripes across it so that each bite has some sauce on it, but you don't cover the whole pizza in sauce. And the toppings go underneath the cheese.
They go underneath the cheese?
Yeah, underneath the sauce rather. So the sauce goes on top.
Oh, and then the cheese on top of the sauce?
No, so
the cheese first and then the
cheese,
sauce?
toppings, then sauce.
Wait, so it's the bread with the cheese on the bread, and then the toppings, and then the sauce over the toppings. So it's like just a red pizza.
It's like focaccia with some sauce on top.
Oh, okay. A pizza in reverse. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of that. Wow. And no, Locke was not right, Daniel. You're wrong about Locke. And he was wrong about tabula rasa. So there. Yeah, that does sound. I had pizza earlier, not nearly that delicious. So now I just feel like let down, like a short changed. So what's up with you? What's going on?
Nothing. I just woke up.
Oh, really? Wow.
I just woke up.
So y'all are like what, night owls? Like some of the streamers?
Yeah, I mean my schedule changes. I just go with it. Like when I'm tired, I sleep, and when I'm not tired, I work.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't. There's no point in trying to sleep if I'm not tired.
And if I try to force myself into like a regular schedule, it does not work well for me.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
same
did
here.
it.
Fortunately, I only need a few hours to
Think like
sleep, and I can do a full day.
almost 30 years, you know, I worked in corporate jobs. It was fucking miserable. It was cancer.
The little tiny taste of them I've had seem that way too. And I've dated corporate people, and they were
Oh,
some of the worst people I've ever been around.
bruh.
But I have
For
friends that are in corporate that seem to do well and love it. So I guess
it corrupted
so it
me.
depends on the person too. Tim Robbins, right?
When I'm smoking, I'm Tim Robbins.
Are you smoking now?
Yeah, I'm slacking. Let me see. What is this? Give it a little sniff. Smells like sour tangerine. Token live on the Jeff Show.
The Jeff Show. Do you have any thoughts on gender differences? Like you're never gonna get me to believe that men and women are not different because I've have too much experience noticing it, and you're not gonna override my eyes and ears. Like no studies gonna do that and say, oh, they're not different after all. It was just illusion. You were
I think
imagining, but they're not really different because you can raise them a different way and they turn out the same all of a sudden. I'm very skeptical of that just because some covfefe culture did it one time.
we're very binary thinkers, and I think it hurts us. It limits our understanding of things. I don't think there's a separation between nurture and nature. I don't think you can say, oh, one plays more of a part than the other. Thinking that way is why we don't understand these things and why we don't have as much control or influence. You know, like why sociology isn't as successful as it could be.
What could it do better? I don't think it's that great to begin with, but what could it do better?
I I kind of semi subscribe to the less suffering principle, and at this point in my life, it might as well just be a complete projection of just my own preferences. You know, like
It probably is.
yeah, like there's this once when you study things for fun, at a certain point you realize you can't know anything. It's all subjective, everything. Even if objectivity exists, you kind of like if it'll tickle the outer limits of your intelligence to even contemplate objectivity. But even as you as the person observing it, you're fucked. You're always subjective, right? You can't ever be objective as the person, you know. So I, knowing that I can't ever be objective, I kind of feel like I just like say I don't know how familiar you are with the less harm principle, but I just feel like Sam Harris and I agree on that thing, and
Is
that's
that the
the only.
utilitarian, like the least amount of harm to the greatest number of people? The
Well, I don't know.
utilitarian principle. Who was
I
it?
don't
Was
know
it
if
John Stuart Mill that came up with that?
I don't know if you always want to go for the least greatest, you know, like trying to get the least amount of harm for the greatest amount of people, because I think then you're kind of getting ahead of your capability. I think in any one particular situation, we can roughly agree upon what would cause less harm and suffering. And there doesn't have to be only one way to cause more suffering or one way to cause less suffering. And some of the shit we're still figuring out, you know. We're kind of poking around in the dark here.
We always
Uh
will be.
yeah. But I think we can get better at certain things. For example, I think you know, just to kind of make it rigid so that there's something to disagree with or agree with. I think we could make trans kids a lot happier if we cranked the love dial up to 11 and the acceptance dial up to 11, and we turn the cut surgery and drugs dial down to 0 or even -2. I think we would have better outcomes if we helped people who feel uncomfortable in society by taking that into consideration, thinking of the ways in which we can make society more amenable to those people, and then
Why?
giving those people a special amount of
They're not
attention and care.
helpless. Why can't they participate in that themselves? Why do we have to why do they have to depend on us to come together and solve their problem? We didn't do that as gay people. We took that shit in our own hands.
Well, I
And they
mean,
can do the same thing.
we all had to make adjustments in order for gays to be happy. That's what I was told.
Yeah, I don't mind making the adjustments, but I don't want to have to do the kind of work you're talking about where I have to analyze society for them, figure out all the ways they're not feeling included. They're better positioned to tell me that than I am to go figure it out on my own. And from
Well,
what I
yeah,
hear from them, it's all about like the words if you use the wrong pronoun or word. And I don't
I
agree
don't
with
take
it.
those people. I don't take those people seriously. I don't think they're being
I don't
honest.
either.
I
So
think
that's
there's people who really suffer from the very rigid sexism that is a core part of being a human being, and because they're different in one way or another, they're really put up against the grinder. And ignorance is bliss. Most people go throughout living their lives ignorant to the structure that they're being, that they're a part of. And if you're an outlier, as you would put it, then you feel it. You feel the ways you experience the rigidness in ways that the vast majority of people would not feel. And those people will have to tell us, and they'll have to do a lot of the work. But that doesn't mean that we all society did come up with a solution. We're carving them up and giving them drugs, and I don't think we should do that.
well, a lot of states are moving to restrict it, but I mean, I was definitely one of those people that didn't fit in to the existing structure, but it doesn't have to be it wasn't traumatic or negative. It was like, oh, okay, I don't fit into this box. I'm just gonna stay over here and do my own thing in this other box. So the level of negative emotion you feel around it, or trauma or anguish, that doesn't have to be. That's not like a default reaction.
Well, I think that's where the love and acceptance comes in. I think that's where you compensate for they're going to have a heightened level of neuroticism, but also some people just want to belong. If you're already a kind of a loner or an introvert and you're different and you grow up different, then you can have a personality type where it's like, so what? Different is cool. I love it. But if you're the type of person who really wants to feel like you're part of a group, who wants to blend into society, who doesn't want to feel like they're different from anybody else, and you just cannot shake the feeling, then it becomes anguish.
I don't know what that's like. I do believe that there's a lot of people out there like that. I just don't know what it's like to
I
want
think
that.
yeah, I know. Me neither. I think it's most people, I suspect.
I think, yeah, like I've always said I don't have a herd instinct at all, and that sounds like a herd instinct.
Yeah, but I mean, there is,
So they
like,
panic. Like if they're the gazelle on the edge of the herd, they panic
right,
because that's who the
right,
lion's going for.
right.
And I've never had to worry about the lions because I'll just go attack the lion myself. I don't need a group of people to make me feel safe from the lion.
Well, I found that I stared the lion in his eyes and said, "Do your worst," and it was bad. I did not enjoy it, but I'm still here, and I eat
Yeah.
lions. They're delicious.
So you don't need the herd either.
Right.
Yeah. That's why I call myself a sigma male in the hierarchy because I'm not part of that normal hierarchy. I'm independent and outside of all of that. But I understand, like there is safety in numbers, and I see this on Survivor and stuff where there's like an alliance, and you're trying to be the one with you're trying to go with the numbers on the vote. You don't want to be the one on the wrong side of a vote because then you stand out. So everybody's trying to figure out where the numbers are so they can get with the numbers. That's all they care about. They'll say and do anything just to get with the numbers and not be on the wrong side of a vote.
What I like about the underpinning of their proposed philosophy, though, is a rejection of binary thinking. That's I think we need to
The
we need to
trans
take.
ideology, because it's that
Yeah, so
the trans thing seems binary. Like it's still binary. It's still two genders. Busker, are you decent? I see you backstage. I just want to make sure you're.
I'm still here.
I want to make sure you're decent. We have Busker trying to come in. All right, we're gonna try this. Don't get my stream shut down, please. Are you decent?
Oh shit, dude! Hold on, I gotta get out of here.
All right.
Hold
Here,
on,
all right. Let me get you out.
what is he doing? Yeah, the trans activists. I mean, a lot of what we see surfacially as the trans movement is simply men being rejected by a gynocentric society, looking for ways to get the rewards that are granted to women inherently, and there's this. It's
You
like
think that's
trendy.
all of it? I think that's a subset.
I think that's what we're seeing on Twitter and on the news. But people who feel uncomfortable in their bodies certainly must be a thing. This must be a thing. And for
Like I do believe there are like little 2 and 3-year-old kids that identify more as female or whatever their gender is. But I think that used to be called trans, and I've heard that called trans medical or medical trans, but there's other types of trans now that we're learning about. But it's all called trans. So it looks bigger than what it used to be.
Right. So the non-binary part of it, I think that's those people. And you know, unfortunately, I don't see like leaders in the non-binary movement. You only see the kind of
I don't even
cultist.
think non-binary should be a move. We're all non-binary. That's
Right,
not
but we
even a
don't
thing.
but we don't acknowledge that, and it's holding us back.
I everybody I know, like even right-wing men, have acknowledged that we all have male and female traits. Like nobody seems to dispute that.
That's right. That is what it is.
If all non-binary means is there's this blend of male and female characteristics, or traditionally coded male and female characteristics that we pick up throughout our life through different people and how we were raised and innate and all that, everybody I know acknowledges that.
Well, I think that applies to everything in nature. So not just gender or sex.
Maybe. Like I'm all for transracialism too. I think people should be able to identify.
I think a lot of
category. Who's white? Where do you draw the line these days at white?
I think a lot of the racism, sexism, trans agenda, both trans agenda and transphobia, are all ways that human beings express the discomfort of modern life through whatever means are most available to them. So you have an internal conflict for whatever reason. What is super fucking easy to notice? What color somebody's skin is, whether or not they have tits. And so that's what humans try to latch on to. It's not even the gender, the sex, or the race, or the thing that's really bothering them a lot of the times. It's an internal conflict, right? And it's just because they're different and they're trying to figure out how, and they're trying to find a place to belong and a way to stand against the other things that may oppose them that are different to them. They're like, oh, look, skin color, boom, it's right in your face. Oh, look, gender, sex, it's right in your face.
Yeah, so everyone's playing out their daddy and mommy issues and tribal issues on other people using gender and race.
Mostly. And the reason why it happens is because we're very genetically diverse, and therefore there can be people who have a total female brain in a total male body. It certainly must be possible, just like anything else.
Well, I don't know what a male and female brain even is. That everyone's brain is different, but I mean, I know what you're saying. I do think that there are very young people that have a very strong sense of identity as a gender other than their biological body.
Yeah, and if we teach these children to love and appreciate what they think makes them different, and to us, it just makes them the same. if we can really teach them how to do that, not to fear it, not to hate it, not to loathe it, then they're going to be less likely to try to cut it off of themselves or chemically castrate it. And I think in the long run, that love and acceptance is going to have a more positive effect on the health of not only the trans person, ... insert here, but also everybody else around them, the rest of us who have to live with them.
Yeah, do you know how many states signed on for transing children?
No, I know there's states that are passing laws to.
The only one I
Yeah, that's why I was curious, because you said they're trying to get rid of it. How many states are doing this?
The only one that I've verified myself by
You look
checking
it
all
up.
the legislation and actually looking up policies in hospitals and so forth is Washington State.
Okay.
I know that's not the only one, but I know
What's
that
the one? They're very supportive here. There's no
in Washington
bill.
State.
In fact, Washington was going to be one of the sanctuary states that let trans
Right.
kids from other states come and do their stuff here.
And let
They
all
will-
the illegals in.
They will de facto kidnap children and give them trans surgery without their parents' permission in Washington State.
That's fucking crazy.
I don't know about that. That sounds a little far fetched?
Well, I mean, it's technically true. It's
Well,
not like it's not like there's an epidemic of it happening.
so no one's going to put
Well,
themselves.
yeah, because it's the state. But when the state does it, they don't call it kidnapping. Though.
Who do they kidnap?
It means they will take a child. They'll take custody away from parents. Take the
Oh,
child.
God.
Hide the child from the parents. Not tell them where they are.
You
in
have a
order
link to where this happened.
I mean, you got to read 50 links, dude. It took me a month and a half to get to the bottom of the Washington State shit.
Okay, I'll take even just one.
It's bad enough that the teachers don't.
Just
tell
try
the
Googling
parents.
it. Washington State allows trans children to be kept from their parents.
Or you could Google it since you brought it up.
I don't think that I did, though. I think I just
I didn't
answered
know
your
about it
question.
until you said it, so I thought it came from you. That's why I'm questioning it, because it's the first time I'm hearing about it, and I live in Washington State.
And I'm sure it's not happening. I'm sure there's not an epidemic of trans and kids. Just technically, the laws and policies and regulations of both the state, the counseling services, and the hospitals in Washington State allow for that.
Okay, this is what it is. They're protected from their. Washington State has for a while had a law like I think it's the age of 13. You can get mental health care and they don't have to tell your parents. So you can see therapists, psychologists, whatever, and your parents do not have to be told. And it's an extension of that. So if you're also seeing for gender care, they also don't have to tell the parents that you're getting gender affirming care either.
Yeah,
and
that's
if your living situation,
I don't think that necessarily includes surgeries and operations, etc. Because at some point,
it does.
I mean, you can't hide that from the parents at some point.
Well, no, I mean they find out after the fact, and who gives a fuck then? It's
yeah,
done.
that's happened.
But you're right. There are protections in Washington for kids that want to receive it, but it's not them kidnapping kids from the parents and transit.
Yeah, that's
Part of it is keeping them away from the parents and not telling the parents where they're being held. In some circumstances, that's available.
It requires.
If they've gone that far, holy shit.
Okay, this is what it is. There's certain youth shelters that kids that are kicked out of their home, whatever, can go to. And the existing law requires these shelters. They have 72 hours to notify the parent that their child is at one of these shelters. Under the new law, they can contact the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families instead if they believe that there's a risk to the trans student. So it's a way around
and get permission to not notify the
shelter.
Yeah, and in order to get permission to not notify the parents at all.
Well, the state, when they bump it to this child department, whatever, that department still has to do stuff with the parent. It's just taken off of the shelter.
Right.
Themselves.
But if you're the parents, you don't know where your kids are. You can't get to your kids. You can't talk to your kids. And your kid could be under the process of being transed.
They don't snatch kids and rush them into surgery. Surgery is a long process.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be. It doesn't even have to be surgery.
Checks and balances and like checkpoints along the way.
Yeah. So for some parents, they don't give a fuck how many checks and balances there are to whether or not you can cut off their kid's nuts or carve out her breasts. They don't give a fuck. They think that's wrong, period, and that the state should never, ever, 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 ever have the right to do that. That's some parents. I'm going to go on the limb and say it's more than 51% of parents. Not only that, but you could be transed without surgery.
Some states have laws restricting that, prohibiting that, what you described, and some states don't. Some states have laws protecting the kids, but it's not for the rate of surgery that you're talking about is so low, it's not even significant.
Protecting from their parents,
maybe 1 or 2 kids,
protecting from sanity, protecting from having a healthy sex life at any point in their adulthood ever.
Okay, but it's like a rare disease. The amount of people this applies to is not worth the amount of money to invest in researching the disease. The amount of children that you're talking about is not worth me. I'm not motivated to care about money or anything. So few children.
I'm just saying.
I'm not a bleeding heart. I cannot feel the pain of every organism on the planet. I don't have that capacity.
I'm just saying, taking kids from their parents and carving them up chemically.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's not what's happening, and B, the number of kids that you're talking about that you describe.
I leave it to the audience.
Is so small that I don't care if it's happening.
Yeah, I just leave it to the audience. Jeff said it's happening. If you listen to him in his own words, it's what it's out there who are it's not kidnapping because the state's doing it, right?
I don't care.
And in some cases, it's not completely surgical. Those are his assertions to the contrary.
It's not happening en masse. It's happening, I'm sure, probably in a small amount. But
yeah, and let's fast forward 20 years and see where we're at. See how that goes.
That's the scary thing.
He is saying surgery. That's why I'm pushing back. He's saying they're taken and they're put into surgery and transition. And I'm saying that sounds ridiculous.
It is surgery in some cases, and it's not ridiculous. If you go to the hospitals, yes, because I researched it, unlike you, and the hospital says yes, it includes surgeries. Right.
Okay, well, you know what? How many kids is this happening to, and what are you going to do about it anyway?
I'm not going to do anything about it.
Like, it's not worth your mental health to even stress out over it.
I'm not.
I don't care if there's a few.
It has not affected my mental health,
their
Jeff.
Dicks cut off. It's not the end.
I merely stated a fact that you don't like on the internet in front of other people. That's it. That's all that's happening. I'm not in some crisis here where I'm going to off myself because one kid had surgery in Washington.
Certainly seemed very inflamed over this.
No, I'm inflamed over your behavior.
That's on me.
Yeah, no, you're not misreading it, but I'm inflamed over your behavior, not over the concept. Behavior? Yeah, go back and rewatch the stream.
Sitting in a chair talking on what behavior? My speech? Something I said?
What difference does it make if I tell you?
What behavior are you talking about?
Go watch yourself if you really care.
You're talking about something I said, not necessarily behavior. I think behavior is an action. Like an action that I've taken.
I think you're actively animated, raising your voice, talking over me, interrupting me. You're offended by the fact of what's happening in Washington State.
Hey, you know that's normal here, right? So if you're going to complain about it, I'm going to help you off the panel. I don't want you taking panel time. I want to focus on content.
Well, yeah, I mean, I complain. That's normal for me. So if you don't like that, then don't have me up on your
panel. I don't want the conversation to be you complaining. I want to move on from here.
I want the conversation right this second to be about how I'm not mentally unwell because of what they're doing to trans kids in Washington State. I'm slightly pissed off right now because of how you get when you hear things you don't like.
Well, I can't help you with that. Like, just take a break from the stream.
What do I need to take a break for?
Watch another channel or something.
I'm fine. Why are you telling me?
You just said you weren't. You just said you're.
I never said it wasn't fine.
I'm reacting.
Yeah, I could be upset. I could be upset when you act that way. I could be. Yes, I could be upset when you act that way. It doesn't. So what?
Okay. Now, can we move on from this point? We've acknowledged.
I mean, it depends. Are you gonna?
I get what.
Are you gonna tell me I'm not allowed to do it? Are you gonna tell me it's not happening? or are you going to move on to another subject? It depends.
I'm not going to tell you what's not happening. I don't think that kids are being trans at the rate that you believe that they
I never
are.
made any claim of any rate.
You said well, anyway, we can move on from this conversation.
We can if you stop trying to combat me on it and you change the subject. Otherwise, I'm going to keep talking about it.
What would you like to talk about, Denizen?
I told you, I'm fine with talking about this. I'm fine with talking about how that when you hear facts you don't like, you act a certain way and it's disrespectful.
Okay, if you don't like my reactions, then I don't know what to tell you. Go.
You don't have to tell me anything.
Somebody else. You know, I react how I react.
You don't have to tell me anything.
Like you react how you react. If you
exactly.
Don't like it, it's not like I'm going to change my reactions.
I don't have to like everything about you. You don't have to like everything about me.
Right, but you seem particularly exercised right now about some reaction that I had that you don't like. So I wonder why you're here.
Oh no, not some reaction.
Make that the topic.
I explained it to you.
And we're go on another panel or take a break or step away.
I'm doing exactly what I want to do right now, Jeff. I don't know why you're trying to tell me what to do with my life.
Okay, I'm not taking.
Whoa.
I'm not arguing on panel about how I run the show anymore. We can argue about topics, but I'm not arguing about this type of stuff. If you don't like my reaction, that's not a topic of conversation. That's not anything we can resolve through conversation. The only solution I have for you is you've expressed it. You only have to, it's a few words. You only have to say those few words. I got it. You don't have to say it over and over and over and take 10, 15 minutes of the stream looping on it. And if there's nothing I can do about it. So if you don't like people, this is the things people have come on and complained of. Interrupt. Topics that are not relevant to what they think the conversation should be. Reactions to hearing things, whether you think I don't like them or not. I don't know what you're even talking about. So I can't address it. Me wanting to not play copyrighted things and people trying to get me to do anyway, that kind of stuff people have all complained about. I can't do anything about any of that. So, but instead of moving on, they take stream time. They want to take 20 or 30 minutes of stream time to get tangled on these little formal intricacies. And I just want to move the topic along to some content. That's not content to me. Those kind of meta conversations about how a conversation should go in an ideal environment with this is not interesting to me. So when people want to get stuck on those conversations, I take them off the panel so I can move on to the conversations I want to have on my show and my stream. That's what that's about. If people are confused.
That sounds fair.
I think it is. And I'm going to keep doing it. They try to hijack my panel with their vision of how a reaction or a conversation should go, instead of just, if that's the reaction that happened, then deal with it. But dealing with it is not telling me about it for 20 or 30 minutes like it's going to change something.
I do know one thing, that I saw you get kind of upset when people just, let alone just simply sing something. Like, you just get kind of cautious about it with a copyright, that I don't think singing something is going to
I know, but that's where my comfort level is, and everybody has their own comfort level around that. And yeah, what I don't want is stream time beat. I don't care if people respect it or not. I just don't want, like, we'll be talking about politics or something, and then all of a sudden the topic will become 20 minutes about copyright. I just don't want it to take up stream time. That's my only goal. It's like moving the stream along.
I hear you. So what's in your mind? What's going on? And recently in your mind, what's been going on with life and everything?
My days are pretty routine, actually. I'm supposed to I need an extra leg on my stool. I use the 3-leg. You want 3 legs on your stool at all times. So you want some income coming in from, not just one place. Yeah. I need another leg of my stool. I need some other little income stream. So I might have to like foray out into the world of work again, and that's such a headache. I'm trying to find a way to get that streamlined.
I hear you. And I don't know that I'd make any money doing streams like this, live streams, just because it's either music or just current events that people don't even want to hear about. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Like I would even go mow grass or rake somebody's leaves if they paid enough, just because that was like the easiest job to get. I didn't have to jump through a lot of hoops to do it, and there's no bureaucracy. You can just show up and do the work. They pay you if they're happy with it, and then you go home, or you fix whatever they're not happy with, and then you go home. And it's just simple. There's no HR, there's no applications and interviews and jumping through hoops and having to justify your whole life and everything.
The problem with that is that you can't get health insurance, unless you're working under a group of people that are paid to do that. You might have health insurance. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
On what?
Just the health insurance, like.
Oh, I don't have a problem there. I don't need it for health insurance. I just need it for.
So you're already set up with your health insurance.
Yeah, I just need it for extra income.
We
lost a roommate recently, so now it's just two of us now. We had three of us here.
Yeah,
and,
that's cool.
So everything's getting split twice now. So the bills are going up, and so I need some extra income for that.
I understand. Technically I can't work. I definitely can't work, but I can teach music. And
do you get disability?
Yeah, I do. And Medicaid too. But the teaching music, it's like people get like, I've noticed it's kind of hard to do online, and when I try to, it's like, all right, when people start to learn, I get them learning, and then all of a sudden they just quit. So I just I can't make extra dough with that anymore.
I remember taking piano lessons as a kid, and for me it was the practice. That's why I didn't stick with it. Like I could go once a week and learn the lesson, but if I didn't practice the whole week and showed up the next week with the practice, she could tell, and then we couldn't move on. And so because I wasn't willing to put in the practice, that's what held up the lessons for me and caused me to give them up.
Exactly.
So if you're teaching someone that's not going to put in the effort.
Yeah, there's so many factors involved, like that. Like there's busyness factor, and then there's the like laziness factor, and then there's the I really don't want to do this factor, and then there's like they want to do it, but they just don't have time. Yeah, back to that. So there's really no, like, people like want to go into this, they go into this wanting to learn, and I tell them every time, you're gonna have to practice, because you're never gonna learn this thing if you don't. And no matter what, you gotta. That's the only way I learned it, is because I did nothing like obsessively practice it. I think it's because I'm obsessive compulsive, And
maybe they don't want to learn it as much as they thought.
Exactly. Yeah, that they figure that out. That's what I found. They figured it out, like, and they don't right out say that, but I could tell just by their acting that they're.
It might be easier to like do younger kids when they're more.
Yeah, like you can't really do that. Like, I don't know. I'm like, the problem is teaching Cajun accordion is just not. I mean, like, it's only for people who are really like they dance to the music, they like the music, and pretty much everybody I've taught was middle-aged to adult. I mean, elderly.
Even back home, I think it's kind of waning. Like not as many people are picking it up from generation to generation.
Yeah, I mean, like it seemed like I don't know if it still is, but it seems like the younger generation is really pulling it forward, because if they don't, I mean, all the old timers that played it for, like that was their their entire life besides work. I think the younger generation, they're still there, but it kind of would suck to see it all snuffed out by like just,
Yeah, there's a big movement there to keep it up. There kind of always has been, even when I was
That's
growing up.
right.
They brought French back into the schools and everything, but there's even more of a movement now, and there's little pockets of it that are keeping it alive. In fact, they have an entire television channel or program, and they have YouTube channels of really young kids, like school-age kids, and they do it entirely in Cajun French, the whole
Really?
program.
Oh yeah, that's
They
cool.
bring people on and interview them, and they all talk in French, and
like
stuff
throughout,
like that is happening more than in my day.
and like throughout history, like or especially early on, they considered it like society considered it a stigma to have that Cajun French and
Yeah,
the
they
language
when
taken
we
out.
yeah, that was the white people when they came and
Yeah, yeah.
the Anglo Americans, and when they started settling down there after we became part of the U.S. and they controlled the education system at that point, and they wanted everybody to. It was called forced assimilation, and they wanted everybody to assimilate to English. And if you didn't speak English, you got punished. My grandfather would get beat, not like whipped, like however they disciplined them, and punished. Like he'd have to like stay in during recess and stuff like that for speaking French, because that was his native language. English was his second language. And they were punished severely for speaking French, so the language became stigmatized, and they grew up thinking that their language was something wrong with them, and so it did not get passed on to my parents and to us.
Yeah, that's
like
good.
his was the last generation, and after World War II, in order for their kids to be successful, they deliberately didn't teach them French so that they would learn English and assimilate to American culture.
Yeah.
And other cultures, like some of the Hispanic cultures or Mexican cultures and Native American cultures, experience similar.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Forced to, like where they're not allowed to speak their language.
Yeah. But like, I wonder if that's the same for Latino. I don't think it is.
Well, there's more of them, and it's
I know.
so there's more. But originally, like when they, not now, but when they were first assimilating into the United States, there were areas that did the same thing with Spanish that
back in the old days
did with French.
It's a good to see that like they taken that stigma away for Cajun culture, Creole, and just about like any culture. Like this, same with the Native Americans, like.
Yeah, they're I guess they're trying to restore some kind of cultural dignity, but I mean, my culture is always going to be stigmatized. We're we're a folk culture. We're always going to be seen as low class.
But you know, I like, but at the same time, your music and food and all that, and then that combination with Creole and all that like gets people loving Louisiana.
Oh yeah, they'll take our food. They'll eat our podcast.
Yeah, that's I haven't been there since 2005, and man, it was rainy as fuck. But I guess
I saw something.
That was in February. It was rainy as shit in February.
Baltimore was in the news today over something. I forgot.
Oh no! What's going on?
I don't know.
Is it to the bridge thing? Or?
Maybe it was on Twitter. Hang on. I remember seeing it and thinking, "Oh Lord, I wonder how close that is to Busker." But what was it?
Oh no! because I've been asleep literally all day because was working on instruments all night, and yeah.
Oh, that's where that got. You heard about the black guy that used AI to frame this white school principal and try
No.
to get it fired? That was in Baltimore. It was all over the news today.
Oh my God.
He like faked a recording behind closed doors of the guy talking about black people and Jews, but it was all fake. It was like it was his voice, but it was AI generated.
It is so messed up.
He got taken off his job and everything, and then it came out that it was actually a black guy that was setting him up and using AI to fake it. And this was in Baltimore at one of the schools.
So the guy got set up.
Yeah, by a black guy. He tried to frame him as racist.
Dude, I hope that, and so that they know that who he was set up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
He's
God.
in trouble. Let me see what school it was. Pikesville High School.
Well, Pikesville, that's like, well, that's county, that's not city, that's more there's a lot of trailer trash in that area.
Oh.
Baltimore's hit or miss, like with either it's not hit or miss, that's the wrong way to put it. It's either extremely black oriented, and that's the city, or it's extremely white oriented out, way beyond the suburbs.
Oh, yeah.
Pikesville is a hybrid of the suburbs and the sticks, I guess you'd say. Yeah, that's kind of messed up though. But geez, I never even heard about that.
Yeah, that's what was making the rounds today on the feeds.
Oh my God. Well, that guy, that's just ignorant fucking shit, man.
Well,
Setting people up like that.
it's kind of like the Juicy Smollett thing.
Yeah,
if black people keep faking racism, that's going to undermine
exactly
the message of DEI.
I'm glad that motherfucker got caught. What a son of a bitch. Yeah. So how late you thinking of going, brother?
I don't know. What time is it? 10 o'clock? Let me see who is out there streaming right now in the streets.
Yeah, I got.
Oh wow! Let's see, Janice Jeff. He calls instead of Gen X Jeff, he calls me Janice Jeff.
Oh no!
Which is Two-Face. It's the Two-Face God. For some reason, he's. Oh, never mind. Yeah, he's using me as his content. See, I'm his content. He's not my content. His whole stream is my stream restreamed. Verbal Combat.
Who is that?
State. So Flo must have got kicked off of Verbal Combat if he's streaming his own stream now. Frank is playing video games. Caucasian Sasquatch, Venus Cupcake, they're all streaming. Flo is reviewing. Wow, Talcott went on Speakeasy last night, and it looks like they're taking a look at that. So y'all could go catch that on Flo. So Flo must have got kicked off of Verbal Combat because Emperor Dave is still on there, along with, my God, a whole bunch of Larry's brothers because they got their names changed. I-Fi is still up there, Uncle Fatty, with some cool cat warrior avatar behind him. Some guy with a W, is that OTW maybe? I can't tell who's on because they have the names hidden right now. But anyway, Verbal Combat's still going. Flo is streaming.
What's a flow state? Flow state. What is that?
Flow state?
What is a flow state?
I don't know how he uses it. I know people talk about being in there, like when you're in your zone or your flow state, or
in the flow or whatever.
You probably know it through when you're playing music and everything just comes together.
Yeah, it's not the state of your urination if you have the prostate.
I don't think
State-
it
the
is.
state
With
of
flow,
your-
you never know. I
The
don't
state
know.
of your flow, your urine flow, if you have prostate problems.
It could
Sorry,
be,
man.
or maybe if you're on
That's
your
been in my
menstrual cycle,
mind all the time,
your
dude.
flow state.
Yeah, man.
I don't know about all that.
That's something to think about as you get older. I haven't
Um,
gotten mine checked, but I know there's something wrong with it. And that
With your-
combined with the nervous system issue, where it's, oh god, my life is a living hell.
Well, we're all decaying and falling apart in
That's
some
right.
way. Entropy.
Exactly.
It's the
We
way
all-
of the cosmos.
That is correct. We all have our own levels and differences and all that of having their own issues, you know. And America's got a lot of issues, and especially this year and last year and the year before that, the year before that. And you can go on beyond that.
And will continue to have issues like all the countries.
That's right.
I put 2 links in the chat for any of you interested in other streams to go to. Those are 2 you can check out. Verbal Combat is Blood Sports, and Flow State is Flow State. So right now it's the Jack Talcott show. So which it almost always is the Jack. Jack is their content, like I'm other people's content. So y'all are welcome. And other than that, we will be here tomorrow at the usual time. And PF Jung is streaming in the morning as well. I'll put his link.
Well,
And that
thanks
should
for
hold
having
y'all over.
Oh,
Yeah,
so-
thanks for hanging out. It was a nice, chill Friday evening.
yeah, dude. I'm
Appreciate
feeling good. All right, take care.
Okay, I'll see you around. All right, and here is Paul's link for tomorrow morning. He does a little call-in show. He like reviews different topics of the week, and then he'll take callers from mostly young kids that just woke up and don't own a comb. They all show up with their hair every which way, every one of them, every single one of them. So get your bingo cards out. Get ready to play bedhead bingo. Anyway, those are all your options coming up, and you get to see me again in about 14 hours. We'll do it again. And other than that, bye. I'm out. After the music starts, StreamYard, you already got to work on it. All right. It was fun. I enjoyed. And see you again tomorrow. Have fun.